Chapter 2888. Xiao Yin and the others did not die. Before the monster wave arrived, his companions had returned to the mine and found the defiled Xiao Yin and Marquis Wolf officer. They had brought them back. City Lord Wenyuan frowned. The first City Lord did not come with good intentions. The City Lords of the broken civilization rarely interacted with each other. Moreover, such a sudden visit did not seem to be a good thing. Wencheng, did you see Xiao Yin on the Haotian civilization? City Lord Wenyuan asked. He was worried that his daughter had provoked Xiao Yin on the broken civilization. Wencheng was angry when he thought about it. Naturally, he told him everything. Xiao Yin did such a thing to you? City Lord Wenyuan was furious. Wencheng said calmly, It's not strange for Xiao Yin to do anything. We are competitors. Father should be concerned about Marquis Wolf officer. I suspect that he is on the first City Lord's side. No one was a fool. City Lord Wenyuan was no exception. From all the signs, it seemed that Marquis Wolf officer had lured Wencheng over and cooperated with Xiao Yin to violate Wencheng. Where is he? Did he come back with you? City Lord Wenyuan's eyes flashed with murderous intent. He could tolerate Marquis Wolf officer being old, ugly, and lecherous. As long as he was capable, he could ignore all these. However, if he was disloyal, no matter how capable he was, he could not tolerate him. I don't know. After I was saved, I haven't seen Marquis Wolf officer again. Wencheng said, However, since Xiao Yin is back, I think Marquis Wolf officer should be back soon, right? City Lord Wenyuan was furious. He clenched his fists. It seems that some of the rumors are true. In the broken civilization, there was a city similar to Wenyuan City. That city had recently changed its City Lord. The new City Lord was not the son or daughter of the old City Lord, but his son-in-law. That City Lord had betrothed his daughter to an extremely capable subordinate. Not long after the wedding, the City Lord suddenly died. The most bizarre thing was that his sons, for some reason, had all given up on inheriting their father's position as City Lord and recommended their son-in-law to take over. After the son-in-law took over, the sons and daughters of the old City Lord had not shown themselves for almost 2 or 3 years. Some people suspected that this son-in-law had once served the first City Lord. Everything was most likely a plot by the first City Lord. He wanted to become the son-in-law of the first City Lord and then kill the old City Lord. Finally, he wanted to force the first City Lord's heirs to abdicate and then get rid of all of them afterwards. Just like that, an entire city easily changed its surname. Now that he thought about it, Marquis Wolf officer wanted to marry Wencheng at all costs. Even the daughter of the first City Lord was insidiously trying to set them up. How similar was it to the city that had changed its name? Guards, contact Marquis Wolf officer. City Lord Wenyuan finally made up his mind. Wencheng was delighted. Father, what are you going to do? Of course, it's to cancel the engagement between you two. City Lord Wenyuan made a decision that made Wencheng feel slightly disappointed. She thought that her father was enraged and wanted to kill Marquis Wolf official. Unfortunately, that was not the case. It could be seen that City Lord Wenyuan was very afraid of the number 1 City Lord. Knowing that Marquis Wolf officer was his subordinate, he did not dare to move. Prepare yourself well. The number 1 City Lord will come in 10 days, and he definitely won't have any good intentions. City Lord Wenyuan's mood was heavy. He had an uneasy feeling that a storm was brewing. At the same time, on the Haotian civilization, Su Yu rode on the black Qilin and ordered the captured demonic beasts to capture the other half of the demonic beasts on the civilization. With his abilities, coupled with the help of many demonic beasts, he was able to divide and surround the remaining demonic beasts. The process of capturing tens of thousands of demonic beasts was much smoother than expected. It would take at most 7 or 8 days to capture all of them. Master, look. The black Qilin summoned a demonic beast that it could not capture to its front and pointed at its belly. There was a black skull imprint on its belly. The imprint was vivid and lifelike, like a living creature. This is the imprint left behind by that mysterious force, the black Qilin said. A black skull? So you did not care at all. He wiped the imprint of the skull with his palm and erased it. He said expressionlessly, Continue. Continue until all the demonic beasts on the Haotian civilization have been captured. A few days later, finally, all the demonic beasts on the Haotian civilization had been captured. The horde of demonic beasts that the broken civilization had feared had all fallen into Su Yu's hands. All that was left was to tame them. Su Yu sent all the demonic beasts into the lotus seat of evil spirits, then asked the sinful lady and the others to help him tame them as soon as possible so that they would become a demonic beast army that would obey his orders. After doing all that, Su Yu weighed the cavern world in his hand. It was filled with resources that he had collected during the process of capturing the demonic beasts. Su Yu did not need these resources, but he could give them to Wen Cheng as a gift. Consider a little farewell gift, Su Yu said lightly. In the future, there might be very little interaction between them. He leaped up and returned to the broken civilization on the back of the Black Qilin. He appeared directly in Wen Cheng's boudoir. Splash! As soon as he entered, he heard the crisp sound of water splashing. He turned his head subconsciously and could not help but be stunned. He saw that Wen Cheng was taking a bath in the room. Her mature body was lying naked in the bathtub, and her entire body could be seen clearly. Su Yu's arrival made Wen Cheng scream subconsciously, "Oh, it's Ryu?" But she quickly realized who it was. Her tone changed, and she said in surprise, "You're finally back? Halala." She got up from the bathtub and ran quickly toward Su Yu. Su Yu immediately looked away and said, "Well, put on your clothes first." Unexpectedly, Wen Cheng hugged Su Yu from behind and rubbed Su Yu's chest with both hands. She said, "We are both women. Are you afraid that I will eat you up?" Su Yu slapped her hands away and said, "Be serious." He was not afraid that Wen Cheng would eat him up. He was afraid that he would eat Wen Cheng up. Wen Cheng chuckled. "Don't give me that. A person who likes to rub her chest has the nerve to ask me to be serious?" As she spoke, she took a bath towel and wrapped it around her body. It was only then that Su Yu turned around and looked at her, who was dripping wet and smiling. He said, "I came here to express my gratitude. When he first came to the 9-star civilization, he was indebted to Wen Cheng's help." Wen Cheng understood the meaning behind his words and immediately hugged Su Yu's arm. "Are you leaving?" Her eyes turned red immediately. "I don't want you to go." Ever since she was a child, she had very few friends. Su Yu gently touched her forehead with his palm, and a trace of the domain of life flowed into her right eye. In an instant, her right eye regained its brightness. "All good things must come to an end. Since I have come, I will leave sooner or later." Su Yu patted her shoulder. Wen Cheng said, But can't you stay? You can do whatever you want of me. Really?" Chapter 2889. Su Yu glanced at her chest and frowned. "It's not even as big as mine." "Then help me rub it bigger," Wen Cheng said, blushing. Su Yu composed himself. He finally realized that this seemingly decent girl was actually the most deceitful of them all. "Ahem." Su Yu coughed softly and said, "I still have many things to do, so I can't stay in the broken civilization. I'm afraid we won't meet again after today." He took out a cavern world, which was filled with countless resources, enough for Wen Cheng to use for a lifetime. It was even enough for the broken civilization to survive for 10,000 years. "This is for you." He stuffed it into Wen Cheng's hands. Wen Cheng threw it on the table without looking at it. She only looked at Su Yu. "I have never had friends. You're the first. If you must go, can you take me with you? I want to see a wider world, to know the splendor beyond the broken civilization, to see the prosperity described in the books." Wen Cheng had been immersed in books all her life. In the books, she saw a strange and dazzling world. That was what she had always wanted. Su Yu was silent. He looked at the dark sky and said, "I can't help you realize it." He was going to face the Emperor of the Holy Mountain, an unimaginable enemy. With Wen Cheng by his side, he would only see killing and bloodshed, not the beautiful and comfortable world described in the books. Wen Cheng's eyes dimmed, and she lowered her head. "Then you go." Su Yu sighed in his heart. He had his own path to follow and could not take Wen Cheng with him. The space around him fluctuated. He was about to teleport away when he suddenly stopped. His eyes passed through the house and shot outside the city master's mansion. There was a hint of coldness in his eyes. What's wrong? Is there trouble in Wenyuan City? Wen Cheng was upset. It has nothing to do with you. Go. Su Yu said, it's okay if I go, but is your father sure he doesn't care? Someone seems to be targeting your father. What? Wen Cheng immediately raised her head. Who? Where? Su Yu rolled up his sleeves and took her away with the space domain, arriving above the city master's mansion. Looking down, Wen Cheng saw a few sneaky figures near her father's study. They were plotting something. They had deliberately disguised themselves to hide their scent, so it was difficult to detect them even if they were standing next to them. After Su Yu pointed several times, Wen Cheng finally saw them clearly. What are they doing? Wen Cheng Xian said in shock. Those are the servants of the mansion. Some of them have been in the mansion for decades. Wen Cheng recognized one of them. It was the housekeeper of the City Lord mansion. She couldn't believe that the housekeeper wanted to harm her father. You'll know once you take a look, Su Yu said casually. After a brief discussion, they each took out an explosive-type Dao artifact and threw it into the study. Ah, father! Wen Cheng screamed. Su Yu waved his hand casually and created a space ripple to block his voice. He said, don't panic. Let's wait and see. Wen Cheng was burning with anxiety. After observing silently, he finally noticed something amiss. It was not easy to observe from the ground, but it was easy to see from midair that there was actually no one in the collapsed study. Only a Dao artifact that was constantly releasing projections was smashed into smithereens. When the butler and the others saw the Dao artifact, they sensed that something was amiss. Not good, it's a trap. The group of people had a bad premonition, but they were still a step too late. From under the ruins of the study, a spiderweb-like spell suddenly appeared, rapidly expanding to 1,000 feet wide. The housekeeper and the others could not retreat in time and were stuck in the giant web. They tried to break free, but the more they struggled, the deeper they sank. Clatter, clatter, a series of light footsteps could be heard. The housekeeper and the others turned their heads to look, and their expressions changed. City Lord Wenyuan clasped his hands behind his back and led the experts of his mansion over from the guest room next door. Looking at the housekeeper and the others, City Lord Wenyuan let out a deep sigh. It's hard to guard against a thief in one's own house. The housekeepers who have been loyal for decades are actually the people of the first City Lord. It turned out that City Lord Wenyuan had anticipated that the first City Lord did not come with good intentions and was suspicious. So he quietly moved to the guest room next door and placed a Dao artifact in the study to lure the snake out of its hole. In the end, the snake really did come out, and there was more than one. The housekeeper's face turned pale. City Lord, listen to me. I was forced. A group of strong men beside the City Lord stepped forward coldly and ended their lives. This was the fate of traitors. However, City Lord Wenyuan did not leave. He said without lifting his head, Sir, you've hugged my daughter for long enough. Can you put her down and talk nicely? Oh, Su Yu was surprised. You can actually discover me. He had released the space realm, hiding himself and Wen Cheng in an incorporeal state. His disguise technique was much better than that of the housekeeper and the others. He did not expect City Lord Wenyuan to discover them. He let out a light laugh, descending from midair and putting Wen Cheng down. To be able to become a City Lord, there is indeed no simple character. City Lord Wenyuan pulled Wen Cheng behind him, calmly saying, You flatter me. The strong men behind him understood tacitly, surrounding Su Yu in the center. Father, he is... Wen Cheng's words were interrupted by City Lord Wenyuan. Did you really think I did not know that there was someone hidden in your room? No one knew a daughter better than her father. How could City Lord Wenyuan not be suspicious of Wen Cheng's series of strange actions? He had long known that Wen Cheng had hidden someone in the room, but the other party did not harm Wen Cheng, so City Lord Wenyuan chose to ignore it. But now, the first City Lord was eyeing him like a tiger watching its prey, wanting to kill the City Lord. City Lord Wenyuan could no longer tolerate it. Your Excellency, you have been pestering my daughter for so long. Shouldn't you tell me what you are planning? City Lord Wenyuan calmly said. Su Yu smiled. Pestering? Well, I guess so. Su Yu's white hand grabbed the brim of the black robe on his head and removed it, revealing the face of Jinhua, Tianzi hidden beneath the black robe. Her breathtakingly beautiful appearance instantly stunned the surrounding experts. City Lord Wen Yuan was also deeply stunned, but the shock only lasted for a moment before it was replaced by shock. He stumbled back, shocked. You are Fairy Jingyu of the Goddess Clan. Su Yu, who had been smiling, suddenly froze. Crash! His figure flickered and appeared in front of City Lord Wen Yuan. He hurriedly said, "Have you seen Xia Jingyu?" His current appearance was exactly the same as Xia Jingyu's. City Lord Wen Yuan had called him Fairy Jingyu. It was obvious that he had seen Xia Jingyu before. City Lord Wen Yuan had not recovered from his shock. He subconsciously replied, I have. Aren't you her?" He had really seen Xia Jingyu. "When did you see her? Where is she?" Su Yu hurriedly asked. Chapter 2890. After a pause, Wen Yuan's city master asked in surprise, "Aren't you Fairy Jingyu?" 20 years ago, Xia Jingyu must have gained a foothold in the 9-star civilization back then. Moreover, she returned to the Goddess Clan as she wished. Judging from Wen Yuan's city master's tone, she must have been doing well. Su Yu's heart, which had been hanging in suspense for a long time, was finally at ease. As long as she's doing well, he suddenly lost the desire to look for Xia Jingyu. Now, Xia Jingyu was the leader of the Goddess Clan, the first beauty of the 9-star civilization. Her reputation and status were one, and she was the most dazzling existence in the world. But what about himself? He had fled from the 8-star civilization to this place. Not only had he lost his body, but he had also become a vagrant with nothing. Therefore, the closer he got to Xia Jingyu, the more he dared not approach her. "I am not her. I am just an old friend of hers." Su Yu's expression was bleak. An old friend? An old friend who looked so similar? Wen Yuan's city master found it very surreal. After a long while, he finally accepted Su Yu's words and said, "Are you her sister? If you are, you should look for her. Fairy Jingyu is not doing well." "Huh?" Su Yu's eyes were filled with concern. "Why?" Wen Yuan's city master sighed. "This is no secret. The master of the Goddess Clan has always been looking for a suitable partner for Fairy Jingyu. I once saw Fairy Jingyu's lonely and melancholy face. I'm sure she must be very unhappy. Moreover, there are rumors that Fairy Jingyu is a member of the Goddess Clan in name, but is actually being controlled by them." "What?" Su Yu's heart was filled with a strong, murderous intent. He remembered what Qin Yun had said. Xia Jingyu was not safe now, and she had asked him to rescue her as soon as possible. Could this be what she was talking about? If that was the case, he had to speed up his pace to find Xia Jingyu and take her away from this abyss of suffering. "You must be the one who rescued my daughter from the Haoyan civilization, right?" Wen Yuan's city master thought for a moment, then suddenly knelt down on one knee. "I have a presumptuous request. I hope you can grant it." So you looked at him calmly. "Speak," Wen Yuan's city master said bitterly. "To tell you the truth, Wen Yuan's city has been targeted by the number 1 city master. It doesn't matter if I can't escape, but Wensheng cannot be involved with me. Sir, please take my daughter away from the broken civilization." He could imagine that Su Yu must possess exceptional abilities, as he was able to pull Wensheng out of Marquis Langwan's hands as if he was in an uninhabited place, and even snatched the space storage artifact from Xiaoyan's body. Moreover, he bore no malice towards Wensheng and was trustworthy. "I refuse," Su Yu said mercilessly. City Lord Wen Yuan continued to plead, "Please, sir, I already said that I refuse." Su Yu's face was expressionless, and he seemed cold and merciless. City Lord Wen Yuan still wanted to plead, but Wensheng held him up and said sadly, "Father, don't plead anymore. Ryu doesn't owe us anything. She has no obligation to help us." Her eyes were red and firm. "Su Ryu, thank you. Please go. Father and I will be fine." How could she be fine? It was clear that he planned to live and die with his father in Profound Knowledge City. "Okay, then I will go," Su Yu said. She took a large step forward, preparing to leave. Wensheng stared at her back, tears welling up in his eyes. His heart was filled with endless sorrow. His last friend had left him, but Su Yu stepped in front of the stone bench and sat cross-legged on it. Wencheng blinked her red eyes and cried, "What are you doing? Walk over to the stone bench and sit for a while. Didn't you reject my father?" Wencheng's heart began to race. Suyu smiled calmly. "I refused to take you with me because I plan to stay here. Staying for a few days to deal with the First City Lord was not a big deal. Just dealing with the Nirvana demonic beast would take a few days." "Ah!" Wencheng cried tears of joy. She pounced forward and hugged Su Yu's head tightly, pulling him into her chest. The soft touch caused Su Yu's face to feel a strong sense of strangeness. He hurriedly pushed Wencheng away, exasperated. "Watch your image." Wencheng was all smiles as she hugged his neck again and sat on his thighs. "What are you afraid of? We have a deep sisterly relationship." "Bah! Who has a deep sisterly relationship with you? I'm a man." City Lord Wen Yuan could not take it anymore and covered his eyes. Cough, cough. "Wencheng, watch your words." With that, Wencheng jumped down but hugged Su Yu's arm tightly, not moving an inch. City Lord Wen Yuan said seriously, "Thank you for your kindness, Miss Su. However, the First City Lord is very powerful and has many strong men under him. I am afraid he will bring you great trouble." Su Yu smiled lightly. "A few worms are not qualified to bring me trouble. It is better for them to come together and let me take care of them all at once. It will save me a trip to the First City." Everyone was stunned as they stared unblinkingly at the beautiful woman. Why did it sound like the First City Lord was not even worth mentioning? One had to know that that was a peak expert from a broken civilization. All right, I will let the strong men of Wen Yuan City cooperate with Miss Su and try to intimidate the First City Lord. It will be best to defeat them without bloodshed, City Lord Wen Yuan said. Obviously, he did not think that Su Yu had the ability to destroy the First City Lord with a flick of his finger. Su Yu did not mind. It did not matter if it was a misunderstanding. At the same time, the Hao-Ian civilization, all the demonic beasts on it had been captured. It was empty and silent. Several people with skull marks on their bodies were galloping in the mighty Hao-Ian civilization. Where are demonic beasts? Why is there not a single one? The group of people searched for a long time to no avail and stopped on a huge rock. What the hell? There are countless demonic beasts on the Hao-Ian civilization. Who has the ability to capture them all? Amidst the commotion, one of the people suddenly took out a jade plate. There was a flickering red light on it. "There is one more." They galloped along with the red light and appeared in a collapsed city. This was the city that Wencheng and Nephrite had searched for. Amidst the perturbed ruins, they found a demonic beast that had been suppressed and buried here. The demonic beast was dying. It looked at the group of people and said with difficulty, "Greetings, masters. Speak, where are the demonic beasts here?" There was a hint of fear on its face. They were captured by a black-robed man who mastered the space domain. A person with a skull mark frowned. "You mean he is alone?" "Yes, he is alone, and he is very scary. You must not provoke him." "Humph." A person with a skull mark snorted coldly. "In the abandoned civilization, there is someone that we, the skeleton Ronin, cannot provoke. Speak, where is he?" The demonic beast sighed and pointed to the nearby broken civilization. He sighed silently in his heart. Why were there always people who did not listen to the advice of good intentions and sought death? Chapter 2891. A Broken Civilization. Huh? The person with the skull mark snorted coldly. What a coincidence. We were just about to harvest this broken civilization. I didn't expect them to be the first to steal our demon beasts. The other person with the skull mark had a serious expression. It seems that the broken civilization has accumulated a lot of power over the years. They can even capture all the demon beasts without anyone knowing. It seems that we need to inform the headquarters and let them take this seriously. Originally, they did not care about the power of the broken civilization. But now, they became serious and decided to take this seriously. The broken civilization. The living beings who were completely unaware of this were living their ordinary lives as usual, until hundreds of white giant beasts broke the silence of the sky and the life of mortals in the sky above profound literature city. The gigantic beast that blotted out the sky blocked out all the sunlight, causing the earth to sink into darkness. The residents felt waves of killing intent. They all hid in their houses and closed their doors and windows. They only dared to look outside through the cracks. The cruel life in the broken civilization had trained them to be cautious. Profound literature, City Lord, I have come in person. Are you not going to come out and greet me? There was a luxurious canopy on the giant beast in the middle. A middle-aged man with 3 eyes and a slightly serious expression sat cross-legged below. He was the first city lord of the broken civilization, a powerful being whose cultivation had reached the middle stage of the heavenly law lord. Whoosh! A long red carpet shot out from the city lord's mansion, reaching the feet of the giant white beast. The profound literature city lord walked along the carpet into the air. He had a strong smile on his face as he cupped his hands. The first city lord's presence brings light to my humble, profound literature city. The first city lord walked down from the giant white beast with a smile on his face. Profound literature city has been developing rapidly in recent years. How enviable. The 2 city lords met in the air in front of the people of the world. They were very friendly with each other. Those who did not know would think that they were meeting on good terms. On the ground, many living beings sighed in relief and stared at the hundreds of giant white beasts with envious eyes. Grandma, there seems to be a very beautiful big sister on that giant white beast. A young girl pointed at the giant white beast behind the first city lord. There was indeed a woman sitting cross-legged on it. Whether it was her figure or appearance, she could be said to be the best of the broken civilization. She was the daughter of the first city lord, Xiao Yan. This time, she came along as well. That's the most beautiful girl in our broken civilization, Xiao Yan, Grandma said kindly. She's so beautiful. However, why is big sister Xiao Yan unhappy? The little girl said. Grandma immediately covered the little girl's mouth. Don't talk nonsense. The little girl widened her eyes. She's not happy. Look at her eyes. It's like she's going to eat someone up. As he was speaking, Xiao Yan suddenly turned to look at him. His eyes were incomparably dark, as if he was a man-eating beast. The girl was so frightened that she burst into tears on the spot. Only then did Xiao Yan turn his head and stare at Wen Yuan's city lord mansion. To be more precise, he was staring at Wen Cheng, who was standing behind city lord Wen Yuan. His eyes were filled with hatred. Wen Cheng noticed the other party's gaze and muttered, "Crazy woman, ridiculous. You harmed me, and I haven't even settled the score with you. Yet you're the first to get angry at me?" However, the civil officials' gazes continued to search, but they did not find Marquis Wolf Officer. Logically speaking, shouldn't Marquis Wolf Officer come along with them? Why don't I see him? City Lord Wen Yuan warmly invited. First City Lord, please come down for tea with your entourage. The first City Lord readily agreed and followed City Lord Wen Yuan to the City Lord's mansion's guest hall. The important members of both sides were sitting in the guest hall, talking. After exchanging greetings, the first City Lord finally got straight to the point. City Lord Wen Yuan, to tell you the truth, I'm here today because of your daughter and Marquis Wolf Officer's marriage. City Lord Wen Yuan laughed coldly in his heart. What a busybody. Since when was it up to an outsider to interfere in his daughter's marriage? What a coincidence. We also have something to announce to the public. City Lord Wen Yuan responded with equal harshness. That is, the marriage between my daughter and Marquis Wolf Officer is to be annulled. As for the reason, Marquis Wolf Officer's conduct is improper. He womanizes outside, and his character is too poor. He does not meet the City Lord's criteria for choosing a son-in-law. He did not expose the fact that Marquis Wolf Officer was a spy. Once exposed, there would be no room for negotiation between them. They would have to fight to the death. This was the situation that City Lord Wen Yuan did not want to see the most, because Wen Yuan City was far inferior to the first city in all aspects. I object, the first City Lord said on the spot. Wen Cheng and Marquis Wolf Officer are a match made in heaven. They must be married. The annulment of the marriage is invalid. City Lord Wen Yuan's hand gripped the armrest, leaving a deep finger mark on the bronze armrest. What right did an outsider like the first City Lord have to decide his daughter's marriage on his own? In his eyes, he was just a bug that could be treated as heir, right? Then it's not up to the first City Lord. The marriage is between us and Marquis Wolf Officer. If we want to annul it, we can annul it. City Lord Wenyuan gradually shed all pretense of cordiality. The other party was so overbearing, it was impossible for him to not react at all. The first City Lord said indifferently, "Let me correct one point. It's not between you and Marquis Wolf Officer, but between you and us. If you want to annul the marriage, you must get our consent." City Lord Wenyuan kept his cool and said, "Is that so? Why?" Xiaoyan's face was cold as she clapped her hands. Two attendants came in with a thick chain. The other end of the chain was wrapped around a person's neck. His entire body was covered in burn marks, and his flesh was badly mutilated. His eyes had been dug out, his nose cut off, and even his tongue had been cut off. Even the area between his legs was badly mutilated. It was clear what kind of inhumane torture he had suffered. If one did not look closely, they would not think he was a person, but a wild dog that had been abused. Marquis Wolf Officer? City Lord Wenyuan sucked in a breath, and only after a while did he dare to recognize him. This person who had been abused like a lowly slave was actually the former #1 hero of Wenyuan City. Marquis Wolf Officer? Wen Cheng covered her mouth, shocked at Marquis Wolf Officer's current miserable state. He might as well die like this. Immediately, she looked at Xiaoyan, who happened to be staring at her with hatred. This caused Wen Cheng's heart to inexplicably panic. Was this all done by Xiaoyan? That's right, it was indeed done by Xiaoyan. Marquis Wolf Officer destroyed her innocence, destroyed her beautiful future of marrying a 9-star civilization noble. If she did not burn his bones to a feast, it would be difficult to dispel the hatred in her heart. But the person she hated the most was Wen Cheng. Why did Wen Cheng not obediently let Marquis Wolf Officer have his way, and instead caused her to lose everything? This was not fair. Not fair. Chapter 2892. Wen Cheng's heart trembled, feeling like she had been targeted by a poisonous snake. She really could not understand how she had offended him. City Lord Wenyuan's face sank, forcing himself to remain calm. And then? What right did the first City Lord have to decide for Marquis Wolf Officer? The first City Lord chuckled, saying, "As you can see, Marquis Wolf Officer is my slave. His life and death are all in my hands. Of course, I should be the one in charge of his affairs. Shouldn't you first ask for my opinion if you want to break off the engagement?" He had only heard of marriage asking for the parents' opinion. He had never heard of asking for the master's approval. He was completely pestering them endlessly. Even so what? I, City Lord Wenyuan, can break off the engagement if I want to. What right do you have to veto it? City Lord Wenyuan's words became cold. It was difficult to give up today. Rather than being bullied by the weak, it was better to be tough. The first City Lord's eyes became unfathomable. City Lord Wenyuan, can I take your words as provoking a dispute between the two cities? He had finally revealed his true intentions. Forcing the marriage was only a means. Openly provoking a dispute was his true goal. City Lord Wenyuan's eyes were sharp. He put down his teacup, saying firmly, "If you want to bully others, then be prepared to perish together." The first City Lord's entire body surged with a fierce aura. I'm afraid you don't even have the qualifications to fight to the death." He snapped his fingers. The sky above the Wenyuan City Lord's residence was immediately filled with whistling sounds. There seemed to be countless sounds of air being torn apart. Waves of powerful aura shrouded the sky above Wenyuan City. City Lord Wenyuan's eyes changed, immediately coming outside the guest hall. With one look, his face filled with shock. He saw 7 familiar faces standing in the air above the City Lord's residence. Those were all the City Lords of the Broken Civilization. There were a total of 15 cities in the Broken Civilization, including the first City Lord. 7 had come. Everyone, as you can see, City Lord Wenyuan has gone back on his word, insisting on provoking a conflict between the major cities of the Broken Civilization, violating the rules set by the Broken Civilization at the very beginning. We should stand together, erase this scum, for the sake of justice. A bunch of nonsense. It was clearly the first City Lord who maliciously oppressed them, but in the end, It was Wen Yuan's city who broke the rules of the broken civilization. He was completely inverting right and wrong. However, what made City Lord Wen Yuan furious was that the other 7 city lords actually agreed. The first city lord is right. Profound when city has betrayed us and severely damaged the unity of the broken civilization. Such a person cannot be allowed to live. I agree to join forces and annihilate Abyss Literature City. I agree. Agree. All of the city lords present had unanimously agreed to wage a war against Profound Learning City. City Lord Wen Yuan was so enraged that his black hair fluttered in the wind. He pointed a trembling finger at them. You're all so foolish. Anyone could tell that the 7 of them must have been bribed by the first city lord to stand on his side. But didn't they see the wolf-like ambition of the first city lord? As the saying went, without the lips, the teeth would be interdependent. The destruction of Profound Literature City was a reflection of their future. Actually, they understood. However, people die for wealth, and birds die for food. In order to nibble away at the benefits of Profound Literature City, they chose to ignore the future. The first city lord shook his sleeves and said seriously, City Lord Wen Yuan, how about it? Do you want to continue to jump into the dispute between the 2 cities? City Lord Wen Yuan clenched his fists, unable to make up his mind. Once it started, it would be the 8 major cities attacking Profound Literature City. They would lose without a doubt. But if they compromised, their daughter would have to marry this trash that had been abused like a wild dog. Profound Literature City would be taken away peacefully, and they, father and daughter, would not be able to escape death. The first city lord silently looked at City Lord Wen Yuan. What he hoped the most was that Profound Literature City would be taken away peacefully. A war would more or less consume the resources of Profound Literature City. There would also be casualties and losses on his side. However, he was already certain that City Lord Wen Yuan would choose to temporarily swallow his anger. That way, there would still be a way out, right? As expected, City Lord Wen Yuan struggled for a long time. Finally, like a deflated ball, he said, "The marriage is valid. I don't agree." A deep male voice echoed in the air. As soon as the voice appeared, Xiao Yan's fists clenched tightly, his sharp nails piercing into his flesh. It's him, the voice of the black-robed man. Xiao Yan would never forget it even in his dreams. The first city lord's expression was indifferent. Don't participate in the conversation between us city lords. There are no rules. Whoosh, a black-robed figure appeared beside Wen Cheng, as if he had teleported and pulled her into his embrace in an extremely natural manner. He said indifferently, Wen Cheng is my woman. The word miscellaneous is not suitable to describe me. Huh? Everyone's eyes were sharp. The pupils of the first city lord shrank. That movement technique was a little too strong. He could not capture Su Yu's trajectory. However, relying on the fact that he had more people on his side, the first city lord did not panic. Instead, he found the authority to threaten him from Su Yu's words. He sternly berated, Wen Yuan city lord, you have failed to teach your daughter properly. You are a disgrace to the family. Your daughter is engaged to Marquis Langguan, but she is still making love with another man. He threw down a sword, coldly saying, immediately execute that man in front of the Tianxia city lord. If not, don't blame us for destroying Profound Literature City. As if to coordinate with his words, the 7 city lords released their powerful cultivation bases, ready to fight at any time. Wen Yuan city lord was in a dilemma. Did this black-robed man come out to help him, or the first city lord? How did he push himself into a passive situation? What should he do now? To kill him or not to kill him? At that moment, he heard Su Yu say, then what about the daughter of the first city lord, Xiao Yan? Knowing that Wen Cheng was engaged, she still had an affair with his fiancé, Marquis Langguan. What is the meaning of that? If you want to execute someone, it should be your shameless daughter, right? What? Xiao Yan and Marquis Langguan. The 7 city lords were secretly surprised. How could Xiao Yan say that? Being exposed in public, Xiao Yan's face turned red. She screamed like a madman. It's all because of you. It's all your fault. So you looked relaxed. Miss Xiaoyan has publicly announced many times that she likes Marquis Langguan. She said that he is a great hero in your heart. I was just pushing the boat with the current to fulfill your wish. Why? You are not grateful to me, but resent me instead. Ah, Xiaoyan was going crazy. She screamed, "Father, kill him! Kill him!" The first city lord's face turned cold. His murderous intent was deep. He berated, "When Yuan city lord, are you still not going to do it? Do you want the city to be destroyed?" The 7 city lords looked over coldly, their murderous intents rising. They hoped that there would be a conflict. That way, they would be able to divide the resources of Profound Literature City. Su Yu smiled indifferently and lightly flicked his finger. Chapter 2893. They didn't even have the chance to let out a scream before they all turned into blood that sprayed into the air. City Lord Wenyuan's roof was dyed blood red. The incident happened too abruptly and exceeded everyone's expectations. Even Wen Cheng, who knew Su Yu the best, had never imagined that Su Yu could kill 70% of the masters with a flick of his finger. Her mind was blank. For the first time, he realized that the Su Ruyu he knew might not be the Su Ruyu he had imagined. It was an incomparably terrifying 1,000-year-old monster. City Master Wen Yuan fell into a deep daze. He had thought that Su Yu's abilities might be pretty good. After all, he had been able to rescue Wen Cheng from Xiaoyan's hands. However, from the looks of it now, Su Yu's abilities weren't just not bad. He was simply invincible. The 7 city lords didn't have any room to resist. They didn't even have time to react before they were instantly killed. What kind of terrifying power was this? The expressions of the first city lord and Xiao Yin were frozen in the previous moment, unable to melt for a long time. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. The 7 experts that he had spent so much effort to persuade were gone, just like that. Then, a calm voice broke their shock. Destroy the city? First city lord, why don't you destroy them for me to see? The first city lord trembled all over. This was not a dream. This was a reality that was crueler than a dream. His solemn face was gradually replaced by a thick sense of fear, and he no longer had the arrogance he had before. May I ask who you are? Su Yu's expression was indifferent. You probably don't deserve to know who I am. The first city master felt the strong, murderous aura of Su Yu, and his heart could not help but jump. He hurriedly bowed. Whatever benefits City Master Wen Yuan gives you, I am willing to give you 10 times more. He was trying to bribe Su Yu in front of everyone. City Lord Wen Yuan could not help but feel his heart clench. In terms of resources and convenience, Wen Yuan City was worlds apart from the first city. Su Yu laughed. Bribe me? The first city lord paused and said, yes. Then I want peace of mind. Can you give it to me? Peace of mind? The first city lord was slightly surprised. What was peace of mind? If I could, I would definitely give you 10 times more. The first city lord said respectfully. Su Yu replied calmly, you can give it to me. The first city lord's heart eased. It was good to have a talk. He was afraid that in the face of such a mysterious master, there would be no chance to talk at all. Please tell me. I will definitely satisfy you. Su Yu said leisurely. I am preparing to leave the dilapidated civilization, and I am worried about Wen Cheng. Only by eradicating all potential threats for him can I leave with peace of mind. The first city is clearly Wen Cheng's greatest potential threat. So, leave your lives to me, and I can leave with peace of mind. All he wanted was for the first city to be destroyed. You don't go too far. The first city lord understood and was shocked and angry. Su Yu said expressionlessly, I'm not going too far. I'm just upholding justice in the world. Don't you think so? The people of Profound Knowledge City immediately shouted excitedly, yes. Senior is the embodiment of justice. The first city has committed all sorts of evil and has harmed countless people. They are the main culprits behind the destruction of civilization and should have been destroyed long ago. Lord, please uphold justice. Su Yu replied calmly. See, killing you is the true justice. At this moment, the first city lord finally understood what despair was. In the face of absolute power, the despair of being weak was just like the situation of Profound Knowledge City Lord just now. Wait, The first city lord pulled Xiaoyan over and said, "Senior, my daughter is far better than Wencheng in all aspects. If you don't mind, you can take my daughter away, and she will be yours from now on." Xiaoyan wanted to resist, but in the face of the terrifying Su Yu, she couldn't even say a word. "Haha, a woman who has been defiled by a lowly slave. What makes you think I would like her?" Su Yu walked over slowly. The first city lord was terrified and turned to flee, not even caring about the daughter he was so proud of. Su Yu snapped his fingers and ran to the faraway first city lord. He didn't even have time to make a sound before he followed in the footsteps of the other 7 city lords. The sky was full of blood, drenching Xiaoyan's face. Her soft body trembled violently, and her eyes were pleading for mercy. "Senior, please be merciful and let me go." Her expression was delicate and exceptionally pitiful. Su Yu was unmoved. Poisonous snakes are the best at camouflage. If you are careless, you will lose your life. At this moment, she looked pitiful, but this was just a facade. Once she gained power, she would definitely return to her old ways. At that time, she would definitely be retaliated against. He didn't care, but Wencheng had to be careful. "Follow your father and die together," Su Yu said indifferently. He took a step forward and was about to trample on her. But all of a sudden, a skull mark descended from the 9 heavens without warning, blocking Su Yu's path. The invisible space domain it released was absorbed by the skull mark. "Such a beauty, and you are willing to kill her. You really don't know how to be tender to the fairer sex." 3 mysterious people with skull marks appeared above the city lord's manor. They were the so-called skeleton Ronin. They came to the broken civilization to find out who had taken away their demonic beasts. The unusual movement here had attracted them. They happened to see the scene of Xiaoyan being killed by Su Yu, and they conveniently saved her. Su Yu looked at them indifferently. "Before you die, tell me your name first." But Wencheng suddenly grabbed his arm tightly and stopped Su Yu from speaking with a fearful look in her eyes. Su Yu could clearly feel that Wencheng's body was trembling. Even when the first city master's army had arrived, Wencheng hadn't been this afraid. Were the origins of these 3 people very special? "Ryu, don't speak. They are skeleton Ronin," Wencheng said. Her head was deeply lowered, and she didn't dare to look up at the 3 skeleton Ronin. That fear came from the depths of her bones. Skeleton Ronin? Su Yu had just arrived, so he naturally didn't know them. But even if he knew them, so what? Anyone who prevented him from solving the problem was an enemy. "Since you don't want to tell me your name, then you can be a nameless soul," Su Yu said indifferently. The 3 skeleton Ronin laughed wantonly. "Interesting. A middle-stage, heavenly law master can already be a king in the broken civilization. When the tiger is gone, the monkey becomes the king." One of the skeleton Ronin's body shook, releasing a terrifying pressure that suppressed the entire place. That was a middle-stage, heavenly law master, but the difference was that he was at a higher level than the middle stage. He was more than a little stronger than the first city master. "Why don't you try to kill me with a flick of your finger?" The skeleton Ronin laughed coldly. Su Yu's space domain could deal with ordinary people, but it was far from enough to deal with him. Unexpectedly, Su Yu nodded and said, "Sure, as you wish." From under the black robe, he stretched out a woman's hand, bent a finger, and gently flicked it. Chapter 2894. The skeleton Ronin smiled faintly as he raised his arm in front of him to block Su Yu's attack. A defensive doctrine artifact could be faintly seen on his arm, and Su Yu's attack seemed to have been completely blocked. Looking at his own doctrine artifact, the skeleton Ronin laughed disdainfully. "You can only flaunt your power when dealing with some trash, but against strong people like us. Haha, you're a laughingstock." Su Yu retracted his finger calmly and remained silent. "What? That's it? I'm so scared." The skeleton Ronin could not help but laugh. "Brothers, did you see that? This big shot is so powerful, isn't he? He almost scared me to death." "Ha ha!" He laughed and laughed, but gradually he could not laugh anymore, because he was the only one laughing, and his 2 companions behind him were also silent. Looking at the eyes of the people around him, he saw that they were all staring at him as if they had seen something horrible. To be exact, they were staring behind him. What's there to look at? The skeleton Ronin snorted as he casually glanced behind him. Unexpectedly, that one glance had scared the skeleton Ronin out of his wits. His two companions had actually, not even their bones were left behind. They had turned into a sky full of blood, which sprinkled all over Xiao Yan's body. Xiao Yan was covered in blood, and she was shivering on the spot, as if she had lost control of herself. Suyu had flicked his finger, and the two skeleton Ronins who had been protecting her had been turned into a mist of blood on the spot. They did not even have the slightest chance to resist. Just like her father and the 7 city masters, in front of this black-robed man, their lives were even more fragile than those of ants. He could crush them with just a flick of his finger. The skeleton Ronin's pupils shrank, and his body stiffened. After a long while, he turned around with difficulty. When he looked at Suyu, his teeth could not help but chatter. You are the heavenly law master. Later stage. Strong people at the middle stage of the heavenly law master could be found in this vast civilization. However, there was not a single one at the later stage. At least in the abandoned civilization, there was no existence at the later stage of the heavenly law master. If there were, they would have gone to a 9-star civilization. I can barely be considered one, but I can only flaunt my power in front of lowly people like you, Suyu said calmly. Put on. Just a moment ago, the skeleton Ronin was still putting on a brave front, but in the blink of an eye, he knelt down without a care for his dignity. I was blind and obstructed Senior's work. I deserve to die. I have sinned. Senior, please let me go. I will leave immediately. The comparison between before and after was truly disdainful. Was this the legendary and famous skeleton Ronin? Just SOSO. He really did not understand how they had developed to become the #1 force in the abandoned civilization. Suyu's expression was calm. I have said before, I am here to seek peace of mind. Judging from your appearance, you must be here aggressively and ready to attack the ragged civilization, right? So, I'm sorry to say no to your begging. Also, Suyu grabbed the air with his palm, and a small ball condensed from the domain appeared in his palm. Inside the small ball, a substantial ripple was vibrating back and forth inside the small ball, as if it wanted to rush out. You're asking for outside help right in front of me. You really look down on me. Suyu crushed the small ball, and the transmission ripple within it disappeared on the spot. The skeleton Ronin broke out in a cold sweat. The skeleton Ronin had run amok in the abandoned civilization. When had they ever encountered such a terrifying existence? In front of him, there was a sense of terror, as if he was facing the emperor of the holy mountain. In fact, his feeling was not wrong. The person standing in front of him was indeed the body of the emperor of the holy mountain. However, the skeleton Ronin had lived in an extremely harsh environment all year round, and his desire to survive was unparalleled. When he sent out the signal for help, he had already made a backup plan. His body suddenly collapsed into small, round beads, which quickly seeped into the ground. It's the Blackwater Divine clan. City Master Wen Yuan exclaimed. The Blackwater Divine clan was a famous family in the 9-star civilization. He did not expect the skeleton Ronin to have a member from that family. This was beyond his expectations. The most special thing about the Blackwater Divine clan was that they had an innate magical ability that allowed them to transform their body into millions of liquid beads, which quickly disappeared. As long as one of the beads successfully escaped the enemy's pursuit, they would succeed immediately. Apart from losing a bit of their bloodline, there would be no effect on their body. It could be said that among the 9-star civilizations, their survival techniques were the top 10. Not only that, one of the water beads splashed onto Xiao Yan's body, causing him to shrink and enter the water bead. Then it quickly seeped into the ground. Suyu was unperturbed, activating his transparent eye to scan the ground. He realized that all the water beads had already seeped into the ground in all directions. It was not realistic to want to capture all of them in one fell swoop. City Master Wen Yuan's expression was extremely grave. This is troublesome. The skeleton Ronin has always been vengeful. After losing 2 of their higher-ups, they will not let the matter rest, right? Hearing this, All the living beings in Yuan City felt insecure. There was no need to doubt the terror of the skeleton Ronin. Wherever they went, blood would flow like a river, not sparing even the fowls and dogs. How many broken civilizations have been destroyed by them? All the men have been killed, all the women have been captured to reproduce, and all the resources have been plundered. Their organization, the Skull Unit, was known as the black hole of the abandoned civilizations, and everyone feared them. If the higher-ups of the Skull Unit escaped, they would definitely send strong fighters from the Skull Unit over to raise the broken civilizations to the ground. They will not let the matter rest. That's good. Suyu laughed indifferently. I am afraid that they will not dare come again. If he could kill them, Suyu could spend a little more effort to kill the skeleton Ronin. The reason why he did not do so was because he wanted to lure out the strongest power of the broken civilizations. He had painstakingly gathered so many demonic beasts. If he did not strengthen them through war, what was the point of having them? Furthermore, he wanted to establish his own foundation in the 9-star civilization, and it was only a matter of time before he fought against the strong powers of the broken civilizations. This matter should be dealt with sooner rather than later. Hence, Suyu let him off and gave him the chance to call for reinforcements. Elder, you might not know how terrifying the Skull Unit is. City Master Wen Yuan briefly explained the Skull Unit. The Skull Unit's origins were extremely mysterious, as though they had appeared overnight. As soon as they showed up, they began to loot the relatively peaceful, broken civilizations in a bloodbath. Everywhere they passed, there was chaos and ruins. Mountains of corpses piled up, and seas of blood filled the skies. Suyu's expression was indifferent. No matter, I will just kill them all if they come. He did not care about a few Ronins. However, the origins of the Skull Unit caused Suyu to make some guesses. Does that mean that you are staying behind? The only person who was still happy was Wen Cheng. Her face was filled with joy, and she did not have the worry of her father, City Master Wen Yuan. Suyu shook his head. The Skull Unit should take some time before they arrive. During this period of time, I will make a trip to the Heavenly Law Palace. Chapter 2895. The main palace of the Heavenly Law, that is one of the holy lands of a 9-star civilization. How could they allow you to enter so easily? Wen Cheng said in shock. The Heavenly Law Palace of the 9-star civilization gathered countless strong fighters from all over the world. Without the summons of the Holy Lands, normal people could not enter. Suyu smiled. Even if I cannot enter, it is not a bad idea to gather some information. He did not expect to obtain the Yin-Yang Gate of the main palace of the Heavenly Law. But there was no harm in checking out the situation. I will go with you, Wen Cheng said immediately. I have never been to a 9-star civilization. Her eyes were filled with longing. She had read many descriptions of the 9-star civilization in books, but had never seen it with her own eyes. How could she not feel regretful? So you thought for a moment, then agreed. He still had to return. It was not like he would never return. Bringing Wen Cheng along would not be a problem. That depends on whether your father agrees, Suyu said. Wen Cheng immediately looked at Wen Yuan's city master coquettishly. All right, you go. How could City Lord Wen Yuan not agree? Firstly, he hoped that his daughter could be together with this senior. Perhaps he could change her fate as a vagabond. Secondly, the Skull Unit had their eyes on the dilapidated civilization. This place could be attacked at any time. It was extremely dangerous. It was a good thing that his daughter could temporarily leave this place. Wen Cheng was pleasantly surprised, but she could not help but worry. Just as her father was worried, what would happen if the Skull Unit came? What would happen if her father was in danger and no one could help him? Suyu had considered this as well. He was the one who killed the people and caused the trouble. There is no reason for unrelated people to bear the pain. He waved his palm, immediately carving out a huge space on the outskirts of Wenyuan City. He then waved his sleeves, releasing countless demonic beasts and a portion of the Nirvana realm cultivators. Hurry up and tame them. There might be a small battle soon. Xiao Dai nodded, her gaze suddenly landing on Wen Cheng, who was hugging Suyu's arm. You playboy, falling in love with everyone you see. Humph. Saying this, she swung her ponytail and turned to deal with the demonic beasts. So he was speechless. He pulled Wen Cheng along. Let's go to the 9-star civilization. Lead the way. Wen Cheng took out an old map and immediately pointed out the direction. The journey to the 9-star civilization would take at least half a year, and that was because Su Yu was in the body of Mirror Flower Heavenly Prince. If it was his original cultivation, he wouldn't even be able to reach this level in 10 years. For the past 6 months, Su Yu had been observing the abandoned 9-star civilization as he traveled. He was shocked. How was this the world of a 9-star civilization? It's clearly the burial ground of a 9-star civilization, Su Yu murmured. However, for some reason, these 9-star civilizations that had flourished for an era in the past had declined and declined. It would not only destroy 8-star civilizations, but also 9-star civilizations. The difference was that the 8-star civilizations were completely destroyed, while the 9-star civilizations were just declining. I have a feeling that I'm not far from the truth of the great beginning realm, Su Yu murmured. Half a year later, they finally arrived at their destination. An incomparably resplendent civilization was releasing extremely bright light, illuminating the dark world. It was like a lighthouse in the darkness, guiding all living beings. At the moment, Su Yu and Wen Cheng were standing in the sky above an abandoned civilization, thinking about ways to enter a 9-star civilization. It was easy to come out of a 9-star civilization, but to enter, one had to have a customs document. The purpose was to prevent the wanderers from the abandoned civilization from sneaking in and occupying the resources of the 9-star civilizations. The document was an inherent thing. It recorded in detail the birthplace, identity, background, and various experiences of the living beings. When entering a 9-star civilization, one had to go to the entrance to check the document. If one did not pass, one would be turned away. I heard that there are some black markets in the nearby dilapidated civilization that specialize in making fake documents. Wen Cheng pointed to an abandoned civilization under their feet. Most of the areas on it were resplendent, like a flourishing 9-star civilization. Wen Cheng was envious. The civilization on this abandoned civilization was 100 times more prosperous than the dilapidated civilization where Wen Yuan City was located. However, it was close to a 9-star civilization, so it enjoyed the benefits of being in a favorable position. It enjoyed all kinds of high-quality resources, so it was naturally very prosperous. Let's go down and have a look, Su Yu said. Just as he was about to leave, he suddenly saw a large number of flying sage artifacts coming from the direction of the 9-star civilization, rushing toward the civilization under their feet. There were many people on each sage artifact. Who are these people? Su Yu found that the people on the sage artifact were generally very young. Wen Cheng tilted his head and thought for a moment, then said, I heard that the borders of the 9-star civilizations often host banquets with young people as a pretext to contact the great families. Su Yu said, why did they come to such a barbaric place instead of staying in a 9-star civilization? Wen Cheng pointed to the sky. There are a large number of descendants of the heavenly suns monitoring in the 9-star civilization, so the gathering is very inconvenient. Su Yu suddenly understood. Not only were there a large number of ordinary living beings in the 9-star civilization, but there were also many chaotic creatures, which were the descendants of the heavenly suns. The chaotic creatures were naturally wary of ordinary living beings, fearing that some of them had ill intentions and would harm the sacred mountain. I see. Su Yu was indifferent to this and prepared to continue looking for fake documents. However, at this moment, several youths from the 9-star civilization flew past them with sage artifacts. Hey, isn't it too late for us to get the news now? I'm afraid so. I thought it was just an ordinary gathering, but who would have thought that the fairy of the goddess clan would come? I'm afraid the gathering place is already overcrowded. Damn it. The few guys from the organizer hid the news so well that they only informed us when the banquet was about to start. Humph. Aren't they just trying to create the conditions for some of the younger generation in their clan to enjoy the benefits first? Shameless things. Why don't they take a look at what kind of trash the younger generation in their clan are? Are they worthy of the fairy's attention? Listening to their conversation, Su Yu could no longer remain calm. The fairy of the goddess clan? Was it Xia Jingyu? Was it really her? His heart was in turmoil, unable to calm down for a long time. Ryu, what are you waiting for? Let's go. Wen Cheng urged. Suyu came back to his senses and pulled her to follow the youths. He said, let's go to another place first. There was a rare sense of urgency in his heart. He wanted to see Xia Jingyu again. He wanted to see if she was the same as she was back then. He didn't know if Xia Jingyu still remembered him or Suyu, who came from Shenhua Island. For a moment, he felt perturbed. He wanted to see Xia Jingyu, but he was afraid that after so many years of reunion, they would be different. Chapter 2896. With mixed feelings, Suyu followed the group of young men to the most prosperous place in the civilization, the Heavenly Star Summit. It was a stargazing platform. When the civilization was at its most prosperous, the stargazing platform was a sacred place that only chaotic creatures could visit. Here, one could look up at the galaxy of the universe and observe the saint of the world. Now that the civilization had been abandoned, only ordinary creatures could enter. Today, the Heavenly Star Summit was occupied by 3 families from the 9-star civilization to host a grand event. The grand event of the Heavenly Star Summit was held at least 7 or 8 times a year, but none of them were as grand as this one. It attracted 20% of the families from the entire 9-star civilization, and most of them were of the younger generation. The reason for this was that the goddess clan's fairy Jingyu had unexpectedly been invited to this event. As the first beauty of the 9-star civilization, she lived in seclusion and rarely showed her face in public. But every time she did, she displayed a stunning beauty that could topple the heavens and the earth. She left an indelible impression on the people of the world. Just like City Master Wen Yuan, who had seen her once 20 years ago, he still remembered her vividly. Ryu, do you want to see Fairy Jingyu? Wen Cheng asked quietly. On the way here, she had already understood the significance of the Heavenly Star Summit grand event. Yes, so you did not deny it. Wen Cheng pouted. Playboy, you wouldn't even want me if I gave you a piece of my mind, but you're thinking about Fairy Jingyu? Is she that big? So you thought about it and said, she's about the same size as me. Heavenly Prince Mirrorflower's body should be the same as Xia Jingyu's. That's not fair. Wen Cheng grumbled. Suyu turned a deaf ear, his eyes fixed on the Heavenly Star Summit. At the moment, he was still at the foot of the mountain. The area around the foot of the mountain was covered with restrictive barriers that prevented people from flying, so they had to rely on their feet. At the foot of the mountain, there was a checkpoint. Only those who had an invitation could enter. Getting an invitation was not a difficult task for Suyu. With a thought, he could create a temporary invitation, which would be enough to fool his way through. He and Wen Cheng were silently queuing up. Just as they were about to reach them, suddenly, a loud laugh came from beyond the sky. Where Fairy Jingyu is, how can I, Minister Gai Yuan, be absent? A fireball flew down from the sky and smashed into the foot of the Heavenly Star Peak, directly creating a huge pit. A rough-looking young man with long fiery red hair walked out from within. His body was burning with flames, and even his eyeballs were condensed from flames. Divine Fire Race's young master, Gui Yuanqing. This is not surprising at all. As Fairy Jingyu's most loyal pursuer, Gui Yuanqing will follow wherever she appears. Gui Yuanqing carried a large saber on his shoulder as he laughed heartily and arrived at the checkpoint. Instead of lining up, he kicked the person in front of him away. You're blind. I, Gui Yuanqing, am here, yet you still don't know how to make way? The staff at the checkpoint checking the invitation smiled and said, Young Master Gui, please show us your invitation. Who knew that Gui Yuanqing would give him a slap in the face? Are you blind? Asking me for an invitation? You can ask the others if I, Gui Yuanqing, have ever used an invitation anywhere? Not only could the staff not get angry, but he also had to smile and say, Yes, I am blind. Please go ahead, young master. Gui Yuanqing had always been so unscrupulous, and many people hated him. However, not only was his opponent powerful, but his background was also frighteningly powerful. The Divine Fire Race was one of the most powerful families in the 9-star civilizations, and ordinary people could not afford to offend them. However, Gui Yuanqing did not leave just like that. Instead, he raised his large saber and pointed it at the people who were still lining up. He shouted rudely, "And all of you leave immediately. Why don't you take a good look at yourself in the mirror? Do you still want to see Fairy Jingyu with your disgusting behavior?" After a moment of hesitation, the people in the queue immediately dispersed. No one wanted to go against Gui Yuanqing. Only Su Yu did not have any intention of dispersing. Instead, he took a few steps forward while the people in front of him were leaving. Huh? Gui Yuanqing furrowed his fiery red brows and snorted. Who was not afraid of death? However, just as he was about to attack, a gentle voice came from the sky. "Let me do it, can I?" Then, a white cloud descended from the sky. 3 people jumped down from the cloud. The one in the middle was a handsome man with a jade-like face. He was holding a fan in his left hand, while his right hand was behind his back. Behind him were 2 beautiful maidservants. One of them was holding an umbrella, while the other was holding a 7-string zither. Upon seeing him, Gui Yuanqing furrowed his brows. Lin Yifeng of the Heavenly Wood Race? Lin Yifeng smiled gently. "Young Master Gui, you will scare Fairy Jingyu away by behaving like this." Gui Yuanqing laughed heartily. "I'm straightforward, so I'm better than you, who are full of evil tricks." As he spoke, he carried his large saber and ascended to the Heavenly Star Summit. Lin Yifeng smiled faintly as he slowly ascended with the 2 maidservants. The staff at the checkpoint had learned their lesson and did not ask for invitations again. Su Yu sighed inwardly. The 2 people just now were very powerful. Without Fairy Jingyu's body, it would have been very difficult for him to defeat them. The 2 of them were only 2 of Fairy Jingyu's many pursuers. Perhaps there were even more outstanding people who had been pursuing her. After not seeing her for many years, her status had indeed changed drastically. Next, the staff at the checkpoint shouted. Su Yu came back to his senses and immediately stepped forward. He easily entered with his imitation invitation. As soon as he ascended the stairs to the Heavenly Star Summit, he heard a cry of surprise coming from behind him. "Even Fenggu Chan of the Feng family is here." Su Yu turned his head and immediately recognized him. Wasn't this the Feng family member who had killed his companion from the ancient tomb bloodline on the Haotian civilization? How could he still be in the mood to participate in the event? Wasn't he afraid that the ancient tomb bloodline would cause trouble for him? Although Fenggu Chan's strength is weaker than the previous 2, his background is stronger. He is also a strong competitor for Fairy Jingyu. Fenggu Chan smiled and quickly walked up the stairs. When he passed by Su Yu, he seemed to sense something and stopped in his tracks, a trace of doubt on his face. He felt that Su Yu's scent was a little familiar, but he could not recall where. After all, he had only met Su Yu briefly in the past 6 months and had not fought with him. Therefore, he did not pay much attention to him and ascended to the Heavenly Star Summit alone. When Su Yu and Wen Cheng arrived, the Heavenly Star Summit was already crowded with young people who were looking forward to seeing Su Yu. Su Yu was also waiting patiently in a corner. He was very excited. He had not seen Xia Jingyu for 100 years. Now that they had met again, should he reveal his identity? He had heard that Xia Jingyu was being controlled by the goddess clan. Should he take her away now? A series of questions flashed through his mind, and his eyes were looking everywhere for Xia Jingyu. However, he could not find her at all. All of a sudden, someone in the crowd exclaimed, "Look, it's Fairy Jingyu's carriage." In the sky, a crystal-colored snow sedan was approaching. Chapter 2897. The snow palanquin was surrounded by scattered pear blossoms, which fluttered in the wind. From afar, it looked as if a lady was dancing under the pear tree. Su Yu's eyes were filled with emotions. Under the pear tree, it was the beginning of his fate with Xia Jingyu. She still remembered Su Yu, who came from the Shenyue Island. The young elites of the Heavenly Star Summit let out intense cries of excitement. The proud sons of heaven, led by Gui Yuanqing, Lin Yifeng, and the others, flew into the air and took the initiative to welcome them. The 3 elders of the organizer also stood up to welcome her. "Fairy Jingyu, your presence brings light to our humble gathering at the Heavenly Star Summit." All of a sudden, The snow palanquin became the center of attention. Everyone stared at the snow palanquin without blinking. They were afraid that they would miss the moment when Fairy Jingyu came out. "You are exaggerating. I just happened to be here." Strangely, Fairy Jingyu did not show any intention of leaving the snow palanquin. The crystal snow palanquin rotated slightly and landed in a corner of the Heavenly Star Summit. She said, "I am not feeling well, so it is inconvenient for me to come out and meet you. Please forgive me." The crowd was filled with sighs. They had come to witness Fairy Jingyu's beauty with their own eyes. Gui Yuanqing said casually, "Fairy Jingyu, let us see your beauty." The snow palanquin was silent, as it completely ignored Gui Yuanqing. If someone else had ignored him, Gui Yuanqing would have slashed him with his knife. However, Fairy Jingyu made Gui Yuanqing laugh awkwardly. Linny Fong said, "Fairy Jingyu, I heard that you are an expert in creating artistic conception. Why don't you let us experience it?" Then, a calm reply came from the snow palanquin. "It is just a small trick, so I will not embarrass myself. Please do what you are supposed to do." She did not want to participate in the gathering in the first place. She was forced to come, so she had no interest in participating. Lin Yi's side was given the cold shoulder, but there was nothing they could do. Fairy Jingyu had no desires. There was nothing in the world that could move her. No matter how precious the gifts were, she would not be moved. Wanting to win her heart was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Right at that moment, a white-haired young man in a red robe came forward with a smile. "Fairy Jingyu, I have prepared a welcome gift for you. I hope you'll like it." Gui Yuanqing and Linny Fong looked at him with disdain. The former sneered, "Fairy Quiet Rain has seen all sorts of good things. Does she need a gift from you?" "Haha, Fenggu-chan, don't you know that Fairy Jingyu hates gifts the most?" Linny Fong scoffed. However, Fairy Jingyu never accepted any gifts. Instead, she became colder and more distant. Fenggu-chan did not learn his lesson. However, Fenggu-chan did not care. He smiled and said, "That is because none of your gifts have reached Fairy Jingyu's heart." Zen Fenggu pressed his palms together, and a snow-white powder appeared in his palms. Then, he blew it into the air. The white powder filled the sky, and when it came into contact with the wind, it actually turned into white pear blossoms that filled the sky. They floated down in a magnificent manner. At first glance, the sky looked like it was snowing heavily. However, in the eyes of the crowd, this was nothing more than an ordinary illusory technique. There was nothing special about it. Even the one with the lowest cultivation among them could create a similar scene of pear blossoms. Linny Fong could not help but laugh. "Your welcome gift is really sincere." Gui Yuanqing snorted. "It's better not to give it. Fairy Jingyu might think that we are fooling around with her." The crowd was disappointed. Seeing how confident Fenggu-chan was, they thought that he would be able to gift some rare and precious item. In the end, it turned out to be a simple and crude, illusory technique. How disappointing! However, with a creak, the front of the snow sedan tilted downwards. A graceful lady with an unparalleled appearance and a silver shawl draped over her shoulders stepped out lightly from within. Her facial features were so exquisite that they looked like they were carved out. She was so beautiful that she did not seem like a living creature. The abandoned civilization, which was originally dark and gloomy, brightened up a few notches after her appearance. The beauty that did not belong to this world was like moonlight, illuminating everyone's hearts. Even the ladies were stunned by her unparalleled beauty. So beautiful. When Chung was stunned. There is such a beautiful lady in this world. However, after a while, she suddenly came back to her senses. "Wait, isn't that you?" Suyu's appearance was exactly the same as this lady's. However, Xia Jingyu had a hazy and graceful temperament, which added to her beauty and made her stand out from the rest. Looking at Suyu, he was standing there, gazing at the lady with deep affection and perplexity. "Xia Jingyu, long time no see," Suyu murmured softly. His eyes were filled with the beautiful figure of the lady in the snow sedan. Stepping out of the snow sedan, Xia Jingyu kept looking up at the sky, staring at the pear blossoms that were falling continuously. One by one, The illusory pear blossoms landed on her beautiful face, turning into specks of fluorescent light and dispersing. All that was left was a trace of loneliness and melancholy on her beautiful face. Gui Yuanqing, Lin Yifang, and the rest could not believe that Fairy Jingyu would be subdued by the illusory technique of a small pear blossoms. It shouldn't be. Fairy Jingyu was the most honorable young master of the goddess clan. She had seen all kinds of good things in this world. How could she be moved by a small pear blossoms? Fenggu Chan smiled faintly. He knew that someone must have snitched on him. With a warm smile, Fenggu Chan stepped forward and said, "Fairy Jingyu, do you like it?" Xia Jingyu looked over. Amidst the pear blossoms, a white-haired man was standing there, smiling at her. For a moment, Xia Jingyu felt that she was looking at Suyu. Her eyes were filled with melancholy. It had been half a year. Suyu had been in the 9-star civilization for half a year. Where was he now? Was he safe and sound? Did he still remember her? Having been stared at by Xia Jingyu for a long time, Fenggu Chan's emotions surged. Thinking that he had moved her, he said, "Fairy Jingyu, I am Fenggu Chan. This is a welcome gift. I hope you like it." But before he could finish his sentence, Xia Jingyu retracted her gaze and walked back to the snow sedan again. She said calmly, "I like the gift, but please don't pry into my privacy anymore. That's very annoying." For some reason, Xia Jingyu's face was very cold. She, who was as calm as water, had said the word annoying to someone for the first time. The sudden words caused Fenggu Chan to be dumbfounded, and even more so caused all the young elites present to be dumbfounded. Was the otherworldly Fairy Jingyu enraged? Only a few people close to the goddess clan knew that she liked pear blossoms. Without a doubt, the ones who sold her information were her own people. She had encountered similar situations many times, but she had never been angered. She could control herself, but she could not control her people. But this was the only thing she could not tolerate, because that bunch of pear blossoms was the most beautiful thing in her heart that could not be destroyed. Just as she bent over and was about to enter the snow sedan, a pear blossom suddenly brushed past her fragrant shoulder. Xia Jingyu frowned slightly and said, "Do you want me to repeat myself?" But there were more and more pear blossoms. Xia Jingyu's expression was cold. She turned around and glared at Fenggu Chan. But Fenggu Chan waved his hands hurriedly. "It wasn't me." Chapter 2898. While Xia Jingyu was puzzled, the pear blossom illusion in front of her changed again. Pieces of snow-white pear blossoms fell to the ground, sprouted, and grew into pear blossom trees. The blooming pear blossoms were like pure white snow, covering the tops of the trees. It was picturesque. Xia Jingyu's beautiful eyes widened bit by bit, reflecting the scene that appeared in her dream countless times. Too similar. It was exactly the same. Then, near the pear blossom tree, a wall appeared. Exquisite bluestone bricks formed an ordinary high wall, surrounding the pear blossom trees. Many of the spectators couldn't understand why the creator of the illusion would cover up Xia Jingyu's love for pear blossoms. The illusion was still changing. The clear sky suddenly darkened, revealing a bright and resplendent night sky. In the night sky, the stars were bright and the moon was bright. Strands of hazy moonlight fell from the sky, pouring into the pear blossom garden. It added some coldness and loneliness to the pear blossom garden. In the eyes of ordinary people, this scene was nothing special, the most ordinary scenery in the world. But in Xia Jingyu's eyes, it was as heavy as MT Tai. Her eyes were misty. The emotions that had settled in her heart for 100 years were rolling like waves. Her eyes were filled with anticipation, staring at the pear blossom tree without blinking. Suddenly, two blurry figures appeared under the pear blossom tree. Their figures were hazy. Their faces could not be seen clearly, but one could vaguely tell that they were a man and a woman. Under the pear blossom tree, they seemed to be creating their artistic conception together, as if they were dancing together. But the spectators couldn't understand what they were doing. What was the point of such an illusion? But what made the crowd silent was that the otherworldly Fairy Jingyu in their hearts had tears streaming down her cheeks. Clear tears flowed down her beautiful cheeks, continuously falling down. That expression seemed to be a smile, but more like sorrow. She, who was crying, suddenly raised her right hand's finger, lightly drawing in the sky of the illusion. Those with discerning eyes were shocked to find that the trajectory of the woman's finger in the illusion was exactly the same as what Xia Jingyu was drawing. It's artistic conception. Fairy Jingyu is best at creating artistic conception. Someone exclaimed. Concept was a secret technique used by low-level martial artists. Through communicating with heaven and earth, one could create a mysterious feeling. Those feelings could lead one to see through illusory things. Furthermore, it was said that Fairy Jingyu was an expert in the creation of intents. She was often able to cause those cold and detached old monsters to resonate with her. However, Fairy Quiet Rain rarely used it. Even when she did, it was only because the patriarch requested it. But now he took the initiative to display his intent. It had already outlined the image of an old man standing at the peak of heaven and earth, facing a certain kind of great power with a calm and indifferent expression as it faced destruction. To be honest, the concept was very ordinary. However, they felt a sense of déjà vu. To be able to make it this far, who hadn't experienced desperate situations. The artistic conception that Xia Jingyu had outlined was a fragment of their past. But to Xia Jingyu, it wasn't just a memory fragment, but a bright moment in her life. At this point, the illusion gradually dimmed and then completely dissipated. Wait a little longer. Xia Jingyu called out softly, wanting to hold him back. However, the environment gradually disappeared, and they returned to the Heavenly Star Summit in reality. Xia Jingyu's beautiful eyes looked around with anticipation. Is that you? Is it you? She asked twice in a row, but no one responded. The person who created the illusion had already left without a sound. Suyu pulled Wen Cheng along as they walked toward the foot of the mountain quietly. Ryu, why are you leaving? Wen Cheng asked. The illusion was created by you, and Fairy Jingyu wants to see you. Why are you leaving? She didn't understand why it was Suyu who wanted to see Fairy Jingyu. Now, it was clear that it was Suyu who wanted to leave. What was he thinking? Wen Cheng could only see Suyu's back, but he couldn't see the complicated feelings in his heart. He was glad that Xia Jingyu was still the same Xia Jingyu. Even the passage of time and space couldn't change Xia Jingyu's original intention. She still remembered Suyu under the pear blossom tree. She still had him in her heart. What made him bitter was that he couldn't recognize Xia Jingyu. Firstly, his body had changed, and he couldn't convince himself to use the body of a woman to see the woman who had touched and felt the most sorry for him. Secondly, even if they met, he couldn't take Xia Jingyu away. Just now, when he was observing the crowd, he had detected several mysterious auras in the vicinity, which were jumping back and forth among the crowd. Those people had similar auras to Xia Jingyu. If he wasn't mistaken, they should be from the goddess clan. Moreover, their cultivations were terrifying, and they might have reached the later stage of the Heavenly Law Master. They were probably looking for someone. Especially after the pear blossom scene that he had created appeared, those people moved faster. Therefore, Suyu was sure that Xia Jingyu's sudden appearance this time was a trap set by the goddess clan to lure Suyu out. Let's go. I've seen everyone I wanted to see, Suyu murmured. However, it's not time for us to reunite yet. When his body recovered, he would build a force that could rival the goddess clan, and then he would go to the goddess clan and take Xia Jingyu away. He wouldn't take her with him to the ends of the world. Wen Cheng tilted her head in confusion. She had no choice but to follow Suyu and leave the Heavenly Star Summit. However, just as they reached the foot of the mountain, a soft voice came from behind. Brother Suyu, is that you? On the stairs, Xia Jingyu's hands were entwined with a thread of fate, and the other end was tied to Suyu. Suyu sighed inwardly. He had almost forgotten that Xia Jingyu's forte was the path of fate. It wasn't difficult for her to find the person who had cast the illusory technique among thousands of people. Suyu turned around and said softly, I'm sorry, you got the wrong person. Hearing the woman's voice coming from the black-robed person, the anticipation on Xia Jingyu's face was shattered bit by bit. So it wasn't Suyu. However, She wasn't willing to give up, so she asked again, "May I ask what's going on with your illusory technique?" Suyu suppressed the complicated feelings in his heart and tried hard to maintain a calm tone. He said, "I once saw a person cast this illusory technique somewhere, and I remembered it. Today I saw someone cast the pear blossom illusory technique, so I cast it again." "Why? Did you misunderstand me?" Xia Jingyu's eyes lit up with excitement and joy again. "What did the person you were talking about look like?" Suyu was silent for a long time, then said, "I can't remember." However, Xia Jingyu took a step forward and copied Suyu's face in the air. His face still had the tenderness of a teenager, and he had a head of long silver hair and a skinny body. His expression was indifferent and firm, like a person from painting. Wenshin couldn't help but be moved. "Who is this? He's so handsome." Chapter 2899. Suyu's heart trembled. It had been 200 years, and he had almost forgotten what he was like back then. But Xia Jingyu remembered it clearly. Suyu looked away and nodded. "Yes. Is he well?" Xia Jingyu's tears fell again. Suyu said, "I don't understand. What do you mean by well? If you're talking about his body, he's living very well." "I'm sorry, I spoke incoherently," Xia Jingyu said hurriedly. "May I ask where he is now?" Suyu asked thoughtfully, "Do you really want to know?" Xia Jingyu came to her senses and immediately said, "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have asked." The rest of the light scanned their surroundings, obviously sensing that their clansmen were nearby. "If there's nothing else, I'll leave first." Suyu was worried that if he continued to speak, he would be unable to stop himself from wiping away her tears. He had let Xia Jingyu down too many times in his life. He couldn't bear to see her cry anymore. "Thank you." Xia Jingyu smiled and said, "Thank you for giving me the best memories and the best news." She didn't want to know where Suyu was. She was satisfied as long as she knew that he was still alive and remembered the pear blossoms and Xia Jingyu. She didn't dare to ask for more. "Goodbye." Suyu turned around and left, dragging Wensheng along with him. Only Xia Jingyu, who was watching them leave, was left alone as she watched them leave. Before Suyu disappeared, he looked back at her and said in his heart, "The day of our reunion is not far away." Xia Jingyu stood where she was for a long time. Finally, she smiled and went back into the snow palanquin. Then she left. Not long after she left, several people from the goddess clan appeared in the dark. Each of them had a head of white hair, and an astonishing cultivation was hidden within their bodies. One of them had even reached the later stage of the Master of the Heavenly Law. Although she had just stepped into the later stage of the Master of the Heavenly Law, she was still extremely terrifying. She could destroy the world with just a wave of her hand. After the four of them appeared, they looked at each other and shook their heads slightly. "It seems like the clan miscalculated. That human didn't come," an old woman said, shaking her head. "That should not be the case. The clan head can predict the future. Since she divined that Xia Jingyu's obsession would appear at the Heavenly Star Summit, she will definitely come. However, we've already grasped his aura. If he comes, he won't be able to escape our senses." It was true that their cultivation level was high, and the patriarch of the goddess clan was extremely knowledgeable. However, what she didn't expect was that Suyu's body would be transformed into the body of the heavenly sun by Mirror Flower Heaven. When his body changed, his aura naturally changed as well. I'd be damned if they'd find it. The only suspicious one is the black-robed man. Don't worry, the boss has already secretly chased after him. If it's really Suyu, he won't be able to escape. Xia Jingyu had returned to the goddess clan for many years, but she still couldn't forget Suyu. His existence had seriously hindered the various plans of the goddess clan, so they had been trying to find a way to get rid of Suyu. He had tried many times to kill Suyu with the heavenly ordeal. They even used slave Jia, but all of them failed. There was a strong barrier between an 8-star civilization and a 9-star civilization, so the moves that the goddess race could use were limited. Feeling helpless, the goddess race could only give up. Not long ago, the patriarch of the goddess clan suddenly predicted that Suyu would come to a 9-star civilization, so she came up with a plan to use Xia Jingyu to lure Suyu out. Judging from the result, it was undoubtedly a success. It was just that they didn't seize the opportunity. Suyu left the area with Wencheng. They were going to go to another black market and get 2 official documents. Official documents were different from invitations. The invitation letter of this place only needed to be shown. However, the official documents had to be used for a long time, and the one thought doing it couldn't be maintained for too long. Therefore, they had to find a black market to forge it. There were many black markets in this area, so they easily found a city with a prosperous black market. Landing on the outskirts of the city, Suyu and Wencheng walked towards the city gate. When they passed by a huge green stone, a hoarse voice came from it. "Miss, please wait. I have a question for you." Suyu turned his head, and his pupils constricted slightly. Even with the powerful senses of mirror flower heaven, she didn't notice that someone was approaching her. This person was so powerful that even mirror flower heaven's body might not be able to handle him. "Speak." Suyu was still very calm. On the green stone was an old woman in her 80s. Her body was old, but her face was extremely young, like a 10-year-old doll. She smiled innocently and adorably, but her eyes couldn't hide the great vicissitudes of life. "You are Suyu, aren't you?" the old woman said lightly. Suyu had been through countless storms, and he had long been trained to be calm in the face of danger. His emotions didn't waver. "How do you know?" "Intuition." The old woman walked down the green stone. Suyu felt a great pressure before he even got an inch closer. As the saying goes, seeing is believing, hearing is hearing, the old woman said. "I want to know, who is under your black robe?" A powerful aura suddenly emanated from her body. Under the vibration, Suyu's black robe was lifted, not only revealing his female body, but also the true appearance of mirror flower heaven. The old woman was ready to strike. Once she confirmed that the person in the black robe was Suyu, she would be furious and kill him on the spot to prevent future trouble. However, what came into view was not a man, but a real woman. Moreover, it wasn't an ordinary woman. It was a woman who looked exactly like Xia Jingyu. What was even more unfortunate was that the old woman recognized her. Her old body trembled, and she cried out in shock, "Mirror, mirror flower heaven." Plop! In fear, she hurriedly knelt down and begged for mercy. "I have eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. Please punish me, your majesty." After a pause, she added, "Everything is my fault, and it has nothing to do with the goddess clan. Please be merciful, your majesty, and don't make things difficult for the goddess clan." Oh, it turned out that the identity of Mirror Flower Heaven was so intimidating. Just showing her face was enough to scare people half to death. However, it made sense. The more ancient a creature was, the more they feared the majesty of the emperor. Suyu rolled his eyes, closed the black robe again, and said lightly, "The goddess clan has always been bold." The old woman trembled. "Your majesty, please have mercy. The goddess clan has always been cautious and would not dare to disobey the decree of the holy mountain." "Is that so? Then, is it also the decree of the holy mountain that you keep looking for a spouse for my vessel?" Suyu asked coldly. The old woman was stunned and said, This is the decree of the holy mountain." What? Xia Jingyu's marriage was being manipulated by the holy mountain? Xiaoyao, son of heaven, once said that the stone body in Xia Jingyu's vessel is the most special, and it can only be completed through certain rituals between spouses. So, you have to find a suitable partner as soon as possible. The old woman was suspicious. "Didn't Xiaoyao, son of heaven, discuss this with you?" Suyu secretly clenched his fists. Xiaoyao, son of heaven again. Chapter 2900. The old woman stared at Suyu, doubting his identity. Even though Prince Mirrorflower had not been resurrected yet, the holy mountain should have a way to communicate with his consciousness. Otherwise, how did the holy mountain know that Prince Mirrorflower's body was sealed in 4 different containers? Suyu calmed himself down and said calmly, "Of course we discussed it, but I refused. Even if it is a container, it carries my sacred body. How can an ordinary creature be a match for my container?" This explanation made sense. Indeed, even the goddess clan found it unbelievable. Why did Prince Xiaoyao want to marry Xia Jingyu to an ordinary person? Shouldn't he be looking for the chaotic residents? I didn't expect Prince Xiaoyao to disobey me and secretly plot against my container. Suyu snorted. The old woman remained silent, not suspecting that there was internal strife among the emperors. Wherever there were people, there would be conflicts. The emperors of the Holy Mountain were no exception. Suyu looked at the old woman and said, "Let me ask you, are you on my side, or will you continue to help Prince Xiaoyao?" The old woman did not dare to hesitate and said immediately, "I am willing to follow Prince Mirrorflower's lead." Although Prince Mirrorflower was still in the process of resurrection, Prince Xiaoyao had a complete body. However, Prince Xiaoyao was only commanding the goddess clan through some forces. In his eyes, the goddess clan was probably not even a servant, but a servant of a servant. How could they listen to Prince Mirrorflower's orders directly? Moreover, after Prince Mirrorflower's recovery, the goddess clan would benefit greatly from the dragon. "Okay," Suyu said, "from today on, you are not allowed to find a spouse for my container. I will decide this matter myself. I will obey Prince Mirrorflower's order. Okay, go. I still have some secret matters to attend to." The old woman was very sensible. She did not dare to ask any more questions and left immediately. When she was completely gone, Suyu heaved a sigh of relief. That was close. If he had been a little bit weaker, he would have been noticed by this old monster, and it would have been really troublesome. Looking at Wen Cheng beside him, he saw that his back was already wet. "Ryu, you are Prince Mirrorflower?" Wen Cheng turned his head with difficulty and stared at Suyu's face in fear. Everyone in the nine-star civilization world had heard of Prince Mirrorflower's name. That was an existence that he had heard of since he was young. A supreme son of heaven who could suppress the vast thousand worlds. Suyu put on the black robe again and asked calmly, "What do you think?" Even in nine-star civilization, not everyone knew Mirrorflower Heavenly Prince. On the other hand, the 8-star civilizations of the past would be threatened by the Holy Mountain every epoch, so they would have a deeper understanding of the appearance of the Holy Mountain Son of Heaven. Wen Cheng's whole body shivered. He let go of Suyu's arm and retreated continuously. It was rumored that the Mirrorflower Heavenly Prince was the most ruthless one among the 10 Heavenly Princes. She cultivated the heartless Tao. There was no friendship in his heart, and he had no feelings for anything in the world. There was only killing. The number of supreme beings that had died in her hands was much more than the rest of the heavenly sons combined. Suyu sighed silently. "If I were Prince Mirrorflower, do you think I would still be alive now?" Upon hearing this, Wen Cheng realized that Suyu's actions were completely unrelated to Prince Mirrorflower. "Then just now Suyu flicked her forehead. "Stupid. There's a word in this world called lie." Wen Cheng rubbed her rising head and said, "Then, why did she call you Suyu? It's a man's name, isn't it?" Suyu coughed dryly. "This, Suyu, could be a man's name or a woman's name. Let's go. Why are you paying attention to these minor details?" Suyu urged. The two of them entered the city and came to a very secretive black market. One of them specialized in making fake official documents. They had just lifted the curtain when a tall man in the same black robe walked out and knocked Wen Cheng off her feet. The latter didn't even apologize before he swaggered off. "Hey!" Wen Cheng was annoyed. "You have no manners at all." Suyu was helpless. Which one of the people who came to the black market did not have something they needed to do? How could they be polite? They couldn't wait to finish their business and leave as soon as possible, lest their identities be exposed or discovered by the people in the black market. Humph! Wen Cheng stomped her feet, but there was something strange under her feet. She looked down and couldn't help but be surprised. "What is this?" She picked it up from the ground and found it was a golden badge that looked like a snake. "It must be some kind of identity symbol," Suyu said indifferently. Wen Cheng thought for a moment, then threw it away and entered the black market with Suyu. In the black market, as long as one had money and power, everything went smoothly. They were no exception. After paying a large sum of money, they got the fake official documents very smoothly. The two of them were cousins. "Cousin Ryu," Wen Cheng said with a smile, very happy with his fake identity. Suyu said nothing and couldn't answer. A month later, the 9-star civilization seemed to be close at hand, but it took them an extra month to finally reach it. Outside the nine-star civilization, there was a layer of swirling, chaotic air. He examined it and found that the chaotic air was extremely thick and full of danger. If one went too deep, they could easily be assimilated by the chaotic air. He put the finger of Prince Mirrorflower into the chaotic air. It was fine for a short time, but after 10 breaths, he began to feel a sharp pain. Even the Holy Mountain Emperor himself was not immune to the chaotic air. One could imagine how terrifying it was. With this defense, the nine-star civilization is not afraid of any threats from the outside world, so you commented. If the 8-star civilization had similar chaotic air, the attacks of the Holy Mountain would be useless even if they were twice as strong. They came to the entrance. Su Yu and Wen Cheng lined up silently, waiting for the inspection. The method of inspection was to hold the official document and walk through a passage of 10 feet. In that passage, there were giant pythons full of chaotic air. Their eyes were stone gray, releasing rays of gray light, sweeping over the official documents in the hands of the people coming and going. If it was real, the giant pythons would move their heads to scan the people. If they found a fake, Ruyu, look at that person. Suddenly, Wen Cheng pointed to a gentle middle-aged man in the front of the line. So you glanced at him and found nothing special. You know him? Yes, he was a guest who visited our broken civilization, and he was also a wanderer. In other words, the official document he had was also fake. Now, it was the middle-aged man's turn. He took out the customs clearance document with great familiarity and walked into the passage with a smile on his face. It was obvious that he was very familiar with using fake customs clearance documents to enter and exit, and there were no flaws. However, at that moment, among the group of giant pythons, a golden one came out of nowhere. So you only took a glance and found it familiar. He quickly remembered that this was the man who had bumped into Wen Cheng in the black market. His eyes slowly narrowed, and he vaguely guessed something in a flash. He immediately pulled Wen Cheng out of the line and said in a low voice, "It's a trap. Retreat first." Chapter 2901. What trick? Wen Cheng looked confused as he was dragged out of the group. He walked out of the group unhurriedly. She lowered her voice and asked, "Ruyu, what happened?" "Sure." So you gestured for her to keep quiet and pulled her along as if nothing had happened. Right at this moment, there was a change in the inspection channel. The middle-aged guest went through all the inspection of the python heads with ease and was about to leave the channel. Suddenly, the golden python shone a ray of light on the middle-aged man's official document. The official document burned on the spot. Historically, only fake official documents would burn during the inspection process. Fake official documents, kill them on the spot. A cold voice came from the channel. The golden python's eyes immediately shot a ray of light at the middle-aged man. The latter was shocked and retreated while shouting, "I am real. I am real." However, the golden python did not stop. The ray of light shot behind him and petrified the middle-aged man into a statue on the spot. His cultivation was at the peak of the Earthmaster level, but he was still destroyed by a ray of light. At the same time, a stern voice came from the inspection channel. "Everyone surround him." Swish, swish, swish. Many creatures nearby who seemed to be queuing up suddenly tore off their disguises and revealed their slender bodies in white soft armor. They all had the mark of a holy mountain on their chests, and their bodies exuded a strong, chaotic aura. The most special thing was that their bodies were all stone statues. Chaotic creatures. The nine-star civilization was under the rule of the chaotic creatures. They were also in charge of such an important place like the inspection channel. "It's the chaotic creatures' law enforcement team," some people exclaimed. These people hid in the dark all year round and only showed up in emergencies. Now, they were lying in ambush near the inspection channel. As soon as they appeared, they immediately surrounded all the people in the queue. Some of the people who carried the fake official documents realized that they were in danger and tried to escape. However, as soon as they moved, they were killed by a ray of petrifying light from the chaotic residents. "Those who resist will be killed without mercy." The cold and majestic voice sounded again. Only then did those who were guilty stop. Next, the chaotic creature's law enforcement team completely surrounded them and sent them into the channel for inspection one by one. Those who held the real official documents did not respond to the light of the golden python. But if it was a fake document, it would burn immediately. Those who lined up were forcibly brought in by the chaotic creatures. No one was an exception. Every few people, they would find a fake document holder and mercilessly kill him on the spot. The crowd's expression changed. In the past, those pythons could not distinguish the authenticity of the document. However, this golden python seemed to be different and already had the ability to distinguish. Many people who held the fake documents were caught off guard and fell into the trap. Now that he was surrounded, he had to go forward one by one to verify the authenticity. Their hearts were burning with anxiety. In the distance, Wen Cheng, who had already walked far away, was stiff all over. His eyes were filled with panic and a trace of hope. Hearing the screams behind him, Wen Cheng's legs trembled as he walked. His voice was filled with uneasiness. "Ryu, how did you know that it was a trap?" That middle-aged man was someone who used fake documents to enter and leave the 9-star civilization all year round, but he did not notice anything wrong at all. Su Yu, on the other hand, had detected the presence of a trap the first time he had come here, so he immediately retreated decisively. "Didn't you notice that the golden snake badge we picked up in the black market is very similar to that golden python?" Su Yu said. Wen Cheng nodded. "I saw it, but could you speculate that it was a trap?" "Most people wouldn't think in this direction after seeing it, would they?" "It's never wrong to be more careful in everything," Su Yu murmured. "We came to the 9-star civilization for the first time, so we have to be more cautious." Wen Cheng suddenly felt unusually at ease. With Su Yu by her side, she really didn't have to worry about anything. "Thanks to you." She was much more relaxed, and she walked very smoothly. "Don't be careless. We are not completely out of danger yet," Su Yu said. Wen Cheng didn't care. "We have come so far, they can't take us back, can they? There are at least 8,000 beings like us." There were many creatures coming and going around them, and most of them were watching the actions of the chaotic creatures' law enforcement team. Were they going to take all of them away? However, as if responding to Wen Cheng, the majestic and indifferent voice exploded in their ears. "You two stop." Wen Cheng's body stiffened, and her mind went blank. She turned her head with difficulty and looked behind her. She saw 10 chaotic creatures rushing towards them with weapons in their hands. At the same time, some kind of powerful gaze was staring at her. The creatures around them immediately stepped aside, leaving a large empty space, for fear of being implicated by Su Yu and Wen Cheng. Looking at the attacking chaotic creatures, she stammered, What did we do wrong?" The majestic and indifferent voice sounded again. "If you didn't do anything wrong, then why did you go to the place where the fake documents were made in the black market?" Swish! A black-robed figure suddenly appeared above them. From the shape, it was the person who bumped into Wen Cheng at the door of the fake documents. Seeing him, Wen Cheng's face turned pale. "Umph! You are very alert, leaving the team immediately when you noticed something was wrong," the black-robed man said coldly. "Unfortunately, I remember you." Su Yu was dressed in a black robe, so it was difficult for him to recognize him. However, he had seen Wen Cheng's appearance, so he naturally remembered it. In addition, his sudden departure just now naturally attracted his attention. Wen Cheng couldn't explain himself. Looking at the attacking chaotic creature's law enforcement team, he didn't dare to move. In his heart, he hoped that he could get away with it. His mentality was actually the same as those creatures who were waiting to be sent to death in the examination channel. Knowing that it was impossible to pass, he kept hinting that he could get away with it, and there was still hope until he was killed mercilessly. However, Su Yu wouldn't hold such an ostrich mentality. His eyes flashed, and he created a space vibration in the sky above the surrounded creatures. At the same time, a group of chaotic creatures' law enforcement team was instantly sent flying, causing great chaos. Those who held the fake documents finally found an opportunity and rushed out immediately. As soon as they moved, the whole encirclement was completely chaotic. Seeing this, the black-robed man immediately flew over to suppress the scene. How could he care about Su Yu and Wen Cheng? the two fish that escaped the net. Kill the two of them. He didn't even turn his head as he shouted and immediately rushed back. Suyu grabbed Wencheng and ran away immediately. The 10 chaotic creatures law enforcement team behind them were chasing closely. However, their cultivation couldn't be compared with Jinghua Tianzi's. Soon, they were completely shaken off. However, as he was running, Wencheng suddenly found something wrong. Ryu, why did you turn back? Chapter 2902. If he did not take advantage of the current chaotic period to break in, he could wait until it completely calmed down. The difficulty of entering the civilization would increase by more than 10 times. Wencheng was frightened by Su Yu's courage. Many chaotic creatures' law enforcement team had appeared, and he still dared to break in? Perhaps the chaotic creatures did not expect that someone would dare to break into the 9-star civilization at this time. Therefore, until Su Yu broke into the inspection channel, the chaotic creatures reacted. Stop him! Su Yu did not hesitate and pulled Wencheng into the inspection channel. The giant pythons all looked over, including the eyes of the golden giant python. The fake documents on their bodies immediately burned and turned into ashes. After detecting that they were fake, the golden giant python shot out 2 beams of black light straight at Su Yu and Wencheng. Wencheng's beautiful face changed, and it was too late to dodge. Fortunately, Su was right next to him. He raised his right palm casually and made a grabbing motion in the air, extinguishing the golden giant python's radiance. The eyes of the other giant pythons were also ignored by Su Yu and easily resolved. Stop him! The middle-aged man in the black robe was shocked. The truth of the other giant pythons could be resisted, and some powerful creatures could indeed do it. However, the golden giant python was one of the pets that Emperor Xiaoyao had personally raised, and its strength was amazing. So far, except for the emperor and his descendants, no creature could withstand the truth of the eyes without being affected. Unfortunately, it was too late for the chaotic creature's law enforcement team to react. Su Yu wrapped Wencheng and quickly passed through the inspection channel, quickly disappearing from sight. The middle-aged man in the black robe was furious and wanted to chase after them. However, the chaotic scene needed a master like him to suppress it. When everything calmed down, the middle-aged man in the black robe immediately entered the 9-star civilization. Looking at several teams of law enforcement team members walking back listlessly, the middle-aged man in the black robe's face sank. Needless to say, they had lost him. My lord, the other party's physique is amazing, and he has completely escaped from the pursuit, the law enforcement team member said helplessly. The middle-aged man in the black robe's face sank. Issue a warrant for me. He raised his hand and drew Wencheng's appearance. Several members of the law enforcement team looked at each other and hesitated. My lord, the cost of issuing a warrant for a creature is too high. Is it necessary to mobilize so many people? To be honest, there were countless people in the 9-star civilization who had fake documents. Was it necessary to go to war for a fish that had escaped the net? Putting him on the wanted list of all the 9-star civilizations had wasted a lot of manpower, resources, and money. The black-robed, middle-aged man narrowed his eyes. What's important isn't that girl, but that black-robed man. He can actually resist the petrifying power of Xiao Yaotian's pet. This is no small matter. When it came to the Son of Heaven, even if it was just a sesame seed, it was still a huge matter that could not be taken lightly. Yes, my lord. Also, which direction did he go? The black-robed middle-aged man asked. The enforcer said, it seems to be a space-time swamp. There? The black-robed middle-aged man's worry turned to joy, and his gloomy face was immediately replaced by a sneer. It's actually the space-time swamp? Then I don't have to worry. Cancel the wanted order. They're already dead. The space-time swamp was one of the most majestic, forbidden areas of the 9-star civilizations. Once they entered, almost no creatures could come out alive, all of them trapped to death within. Even the most powerful mid-stage, heavenly Tao lords didn't dare to venture deep into it. If Su Yu and Wencheng dared to barge in, they would definitely die. Speaking of Su Yu, they were very unfamiliar with a 9-star civilization. With their pursuers chasing behind them, They chose a direction to run in. After a long time, they entered an exceptionally muddy area. Patter! Wen Cheng stepped into the mud, and a colorful footprint was left behind. This! Wen Cheng looked down at her own footprint, her eyes filled with disbelief. Beside the footprint, just now, there was another footprint that had been left behind at some unknown time. That footprint was exactly the same as hers. This is the place where I was just now. Wen Cheng exclaimed in surprise. However, the surroundings were extremely unfamiliar, and she had no recollection of it at all. She was sure that they hadn't been here just now. But how could her footprint be left behind? Could it be that the footprint could move? As Suyu was deep in thought, the space-time domain surrounded him. In the end, Wen Cheng discovered some clues in this domain. The scene in front of them changed continuously. It was clearly the same place, but different scenery appeared. Just like when they first arrived at the abandoned 9-star civilization, different people saw different scenes. Space-time anomaly. Suyu's eyes shone with a shrewd light. Without a doubt, the space-time here had been distorted by some powerful force. Just as he was thinking of countermeasures, a voice that he was looking forward to came from the Nightmare Crossing Lotus Seat. Holy Su, I feel the fluctuation of the 9th domain. Suyu immediately released a person from the Nightmare Crossing Lotus Seat. It was none other than the 9th Master. He was the only person in the world who still had contact with the 9th domain. It is nearby. You should leave this place quickly, the 9th Master said solemnly. The 9th domain had taken away the remnants of the 8 domains left by the Taichu Pathmaster and escaped from the 8-star civilization. Suyu had never thought that he would encounter it as soon as he entered the 9-star civilization. What fate! Suyu's eyes flickered slightly. He used the space-time domain to envelop the 9th Master in Wen Cheng so that they wouldn't be affected by the power of space-time. Don't worry, it may not have found me, Suyu said confidently. They had stepped into this place by accident, and the 9th domain couldn't have predicted that they would be here in advance, could it? You lead the way and see if we can find the 9th domain. Suyu's eyes were filled with anticipation. If it wasn't for the body of Mirror Flower Heaven, he would have stayed as far away from it as possible. But now he could give it a try. It would be best if he could catch it, but it didn't matter if he couldn't. The 9th domain might not be able to do anything to him. The 9th Master hesitated, but he could only lead the way silently. With him sensing the aura of the 9th domain, they wouldn't get lost again. In this swamp, the terrain was extremely complicated and there were traps everywhere. Moreover, the changes in space-time were very sensitive. If they weren't careful, the space domain could change their location. Time was also very unstable. Sometimes it sped up, sometimes it slowed down, and sometimes it froze. The swamp wasn't very large, but it could trap people in it and make them unable to extricate themselves. Fortunately, Suyu had mastered the space-time domain, which greatly reduced the interference. Even so, it took the 9th Master a full 10 days to bring everyone to the center of the swamp. The surroundings were deathly silent, and there were no traces left by anyone. It was obvious that no one had ever reached this place. In the center of the swamp, there was a giant black tree without leaves. It was bald and had only sharp thorns left. On the book, there was an existence that looked like a python or a giant dragon wrapped around the trunk of the tree. Its entire body was colored in 9 colors, and it was constantly emitting a strong aura of the domain. The 9th Master's pupils shrank fiercely. That's it. Back then, the 9th domain transformed into this thing to injure me and leave alone. Chapter 2903. After the 9th domain had merged with the other domains, it had developed its own intelligence, wounded the 9th hegemon, and fled. It had been many years since they had last seen each other, and the memory was still fresh in the 9th hegemon's mind. Suyu stared at him, his eyes filled with vigilance. According to the 9th hegemon, the 9th realm's current strength was almost comparable to that of ancient god Julong in the abyss. If there was no need, it was best not to wake him up. He stared deeply at the 9th realm, then gestured for Wen Cheng and the 9th hegemon to step back and not disturb them. When he was fully prepared, he would subdue the 9th realm and forge the divine 9-dragon cauldron. During this period, he should make sufficient preparations to refine the divine nine-dragon cauldron. He had already prepared the materials and was only lacking the superb skills to forge a new divine nine-dragon cauldron. The original divine nine dragons cauldron was still a saint artifact, even though it was incomplete. The grade of a new divine nine-dragon cauldron might be higher than a saint artifact, and it required a superb forging memory. He might not be able to refine it by himself. The group quietly retreated, but a slight sound came from another direction. Suyu's expression changed slightly, and he gestured for them to stop. They hit on the spot and observed silently. In the opposite direction, there were actually two sneaky figures. They used some unknown method to pass through the space-time swamps and arrive in front of the ninth realm. We've finally found him. Hurry up and report this to the third Vice Hall Master. The two of them transmitted their voices to one another. After saying that, he silently retreated. But when they wanted to leave, there was a creaking sound in the silent swamp. The sound was very crisp, like the sound of a tree branch breaking. Both sides held their breaths as they stared at the withered black tree trunk. A branch gently fell from the tree trunk and sank into the mud. Looking at the branch, everyone's hearts were in their throats, because the branch had fallen from the side of the ninth realm. That meant the ninth realm had moved. The ninth hegemon was still fearful of the ninth domain, and he was about to flee. However, he was stopped by Suyu. He shook his head lightly and signaled to the ninth master not to act rashly. He could keep his composure, but the two unidentified people in front of him might not be able to. Startled, they immediately retreated. This movement not only exposed his aura, but also left behind traces of energy fluctuations. Crack! A violent sound came from the pitch-black ancient tree. The two of them turned around and were scared out of their wits. The ninth realm started to move. Its massive body caused tree branches to snap continuously, emitting crisp, cracking sounds. It woke up. The two of them did not dare to hesitate at all. They immediately circulated all the power in their bodies and activated their life-saving Tao artifacts to escape. But halfway through, the commotion behind him became more and more intense. The ninth realm raised its giant head and opened its nine-colored eyes. It stared in the direction the two of them escaped. Its enormous body quickly twisted away from the ancient tree and turned into a bolt of nine-colored lightning that intercepted the two of them. There was a cold smile in her eyes. "So you're from the Temple of Heaven. Why? That old woman by Shui still hasn't given up and wants to subdue me?" It turned out that the two of them were from the Palace of Heaven. Facing the enormous ninth realm, the two of them shuddered in fear. Many years ago, an extremely terrifying existence suddenly appeared in the nine-star civilization. As soon as it arrived in the nine-star civilization, it started a massacre, causing endless slaughter. Many forces joined forces to hunt him down, from the aristocratic clans to the sacred clans to the primal chaos heavenly clans. They all pursued and intercepted him. However, the ninth realm was extremely tyrannical. It killed and escaped at the same time, massacring countless forces. In the end, not only were they not captured, but they were all killed by it. Many forces were finally scared and gave up the chase. The Temple of Heaven was one of them. Back then, the Temple Master personally led the experts of the Temple of Heaven to participate in the encirclement. However, the only one who survived in the end was the Temple Master himself. The rest of the people died, and the Temple Master himself was severely injured. It was said that he had yet to recover. "Haha, I didn't teach her a lesson enough," the ninth realm said coldly. The two members of the Temple of Heaven swallowed hard. One of them said fearfully, "We have no ill intentions." The ninth realm squinted its huge eyes and smiled. "I have no ill intentions either. I just wanted to replenish some energy, so I killed a few more people." "But why are you trying to kill me?" The ninth realm opened its bloody mouth. Without any hesitation, the two members of the Temple of Heaven immediately used their life-saving techniques to escape. They were using the Temple of Heaven's unique spatial transference magic treasure that could instantly teleport them to extremely far places. The distance they could cover was even greater than that of the Yuan realm. However, To their despair, they found that after they used it, they could not move at all. How dare you use spatial divine techniques in front of me? Ha! That old woman by Shui obviously sent you here to die. The ninth realm did not hesitate anymore. It opened its mouth and swallowed the two of them into its stomach. A scream came from its mouth, and a trace of blood splashed out from the crack. Su Yu and the others could not help but tremble when they saw this. The strength of the two members of the Temple of Heaven was almost at the later stage of the Master of the Heaven Law. However, they did not even have the chance to resist before they were swallowed on the spot. If it had been them, they would not have ended up much better. The Ninth Realm Master's eyelids twitched wildly, and he whispered, "This guy is many times stronger than when he first gained intelligence." Shoo! Hearing his voice, Su Yu felt that something was wrong. He immediately raised his index finger, signaling for him to keep quiet. The Ninth Realm fused many powerful domains and could detect everything in the world. Nothing could escape its ears. As expected, the Ninth Realm's huge head suddenly turned in Su Yu's direction and grinned. I was wondering why there was a disgusting smell nearby. It turns out that my old friend is here. Bang! Its huge, nine-colored tail suddenly rose up and then smashed towards the place where Su Yu and the others were hiding with a thunderous force. Su Yu saw that the situation was not good and immediately pulled the two of them to escape. Then a violent sound came from behind, and the swamp was splashed dozens of feet high. However, before Su Yu and the others could completely escape, the nine-colored tail immediately swept towards them. If this tail swept them, Wen Sheng and the Ninth Realm Master would be turned into ashes on the spot. Su Yu gritted his teeth and pushed the two of them away. He used the body of the Mirror Flower Heavenly Prince to withstand this blow. He turned around and pushed his hands out fiercely. Bang! A deafening sound came. Su Yu was swept away, and his mouth was full of the Heavenly Prince's blood. His body felt like it was falling apart, and he almost collapsed. The Ninth Realm was surprised. What on earth are you? You have the 8 great realms and the body of the Heavenly Prince? After a short period of contact, the Ninth Realm had already noticed something. Chapter 2904. After all, if I eat you, I will have a higher chance of evolving into a higher existence. The Ninth Realm's eyes became more and more dangerous. Su Yu's heart skipped a beat. The Ninth Realm was now a combination of the 8 great realms. It could be said to have reached the limit of the realms in the world. Could there be an even more unique realm above it? As if sensing Su Yu's confusion, the Ninth Realm chuckled. Since you and I both cultivate the 8 great realms, I can let you die knowing. Do you know why the Saint Mountain Emperor is so powerful? Su Yu's eyes flashed. To be honest, he had fought with the 2 clones of the Saint Mountain Emperor, but he had never felt the core of the Saint Mountain Emperor's strength. The 2 clones relied on their superior cultivation to suppress and kill Su Yu. He could not see how powerful they were. It's the power of Tai Chu. The Ninth Realm's eyes were filled with longing. I felt this power in the traces left behind by the Tai Chu Taoist master. The Tai Chu Taoist master called it the Tai Chu power. The Tai Chu power is the source of all power. The tens of thousands of races in the world each cultivate a different power system. The power of the realm, the power of the demon clan, the power of wind, the power of fire. In the end, they all originate from the Tai Chu power. All the techniques in the world lead to the same goal. The Ninth Realm said, if the power of the realm is cultivated to the limit, it is possible to recreate the Tai Chu power. The Tai Chu power? Su Yu murmured. He did not doubt it. As a mortal body, he had once mastered an extraordinary gas, the Tai Chu power. It could transform all things. Everything in the Tai Chu realm was derived from the Tai Chu power. Therefore, Su Yu believed in the existence of the Tai Chu power. There are a total of 12 people in the world who have mastered the Tai Chu power. The Ninth Realm's eyes were filled with longing. The first is the Tai Chu Taoist master. The second is the human ancestor. The remaining 10 are the Saint Mountain Emperors. I will be the 13th. He stared at Su Yu and chuckled. Why don't you fulfill my wish and become a part of me? With the 8 great realms combined, it will be like half of me. The reason why Su Yu's 8 great realms were not as good as the ninth realm was because his 8 great realms had been taken away by the ancient god Jilong. Su Yu was unperturbed. Let's see if you have the ability to do so. He raised his hand, and the 10,000 tribulations scythe appeared in his palm. Right now, his body was that of the stone-birthed son of heaven, and he possessed boundless chaotic force. It was countless times more powerful than purely relying on the heart's blood. One could imagine how powerful the scythe of 10,000 tribulations would be. At the very least, he could easily recreate the scene of cutting off ancient god Nine Dragon's tail. Looking at the great scythe of 10,000 calamity, the ninth realm was shocked. Then, sadness appeared in his eyes. Powerful beings like us are like animals in a cage. We will be slaughtered by others. Even the pets of the Taichu Tao Lord are so pitiful. It recognized that the great scythe of 10,000 tribulations was forged by the Tao Tai progenitor. Although he was sad, the will in his eyes became more resolute. I must break the shackles and become like the absolute beginning. Then, I won't be afraid of the experts in this world, and I can suppress everything. Roar. With a loud roar, the ninth realm showed no fear. Instead, it exploded with ferocity. Su Yu did not want to fall behind. He clenched his fist, and the chaotic force of heaven mirror flower flowed into the great scythe of 10,000 tribulations like spring water. After receiving the vigorous chaotic force, the handle of the great scythe of 10,000 tribulations turned into a bleak white spine. The 9 heads on it were all burning with golden light. Finally, a golden head that was the main soul revealed its true body. Its eyes opened slowly. They were cold and desolate, like a dark black hole that could annihilate everything in the world. Whoosh! 10 rays of black light were released from the 10 golden heads at the same time. Then, they intertwined and formed a terrifying beam of light that could destroy heaven and earth. It was no less powerful than the destruction of an era. Shield of the Realm. The ninth realm was extremely fierce. Instead of retreating, he went against the current. 9 colored crystals appeared all over his body and connected with each other to form a gigantic shield. The beam of light that had cut off ancient god Nine Dragon's tail bombarded the crystal shield, but it only left a few cracks. So he was shocked. The ninth master said that the ninth realm's strength was similar to that of ancient god Nine Dragon. Now, it seemed that the ninth realm was stronger than him. Didn't this mean that he was about to catch up with the Holy Mountain Emperor? No wonder he boasted that he wanted to evolve into a higher level of existence. It seemed that he was only one step away from that realm. The ninth realm broke through the beam of light and rushed toward Su Yu. It opened its huge mouth, ready to swallow Su Yu in one bite. In the face of great danger, Su Yu was calm, as usual. He took out a stone mirror. That stone mirror was the treasure of Mirror Flower Heaven. However, it was not a real treasure. It was an illusion created by a thought. Its real power was less than 1/10,000th of the real thing. However, if it was used by Mirror Flower Heaven herself, its power might be different. He instilled the chaotic force into it, and immediately several petals burst out from it. The petals seemed weak and light, but they made the ninth realm's eyes become more solemn. The giant mouth that was about to bite Su Yu suddenly closed. Then it turned its head and used its body to resist the attack. Bang! With a loud noise, the petals fell on the ninth realm's crystal shield. The defense, which was already falling apart, was finally broken. Su Yu was prepared. He raised his hand and used the great scythe of 10,000 tribulations. The ninth realm snorted coldly and opened its mouth. Real realm. It spat out a huge cube formed by the fusion of the 9 great Yuan realms. It wrapped the light beam of the great scythe of 10,000 tribulations within it. After the beam of light entered it, it was like a clay ox entering the sea, disappearing without a sound. Real realm. Su Yu's pupils shrank slightly. To be precise, it was a semi-real realm that was about to reach the level of a real realm. Just a little bit more, and it would be a real realm. Crack! the pseudo-real realm shattered, and a light beam penetrated through it. However, the energy was greatly weakened, and only a small part of it bombarded the ninth realm. It was neither light nor itchy, and it could not cause any harm. Suyu's heart sank. It was indeed difficult to deal with. He was still far from being able to tame the ninth realm. Even though he thought so, the ninth realm also felt that Suyu was difficult to deal with. With its current strength, it could be said that apart from a few of the top chaotic heavenly clan and the St. Mountain Emperor, it had no rivals. However, it could not deal with a small human like Suyu. The great scythe of 10,000 tribulations and the body of Mirrorflower Heaven were extremely difficult to deal with. The ninth realm's ferocious aura was stronger. The stronger Suyu was, the more he wanted to devour him. That way, the possibility of him achieving the body of absolute beginning would be greater. However, all of a sudden, the ninth realm's body trembled uncontrollably. Then it retreated quietly and snorted coldly. Consider yourself lucky. The next time we meet, it will be the day of your death. Looking at the retreating ninth realm, the ninth realm said in disbelief, You actually defeated the ninth realm? Suyu's eyes flashed, and he shook his head. I did not defeat it. It has other secrets. Let's go and chase after it. Since they were fighting, he naturally had to take advantage of its weakness. Suyu keenly sensed that there seemed to be some problems with the ninth realm's body. Chapter 29:05. Otherwise, the ninth realm wouldn't have given up on him so easily. As expected, the ninth realm's speed was greatly reduced. He stumbled and crawled in the mud. His eyes were filled with pain. The space-time swamp that was sustained by it was also fluctuating, a sign that it was about to shatter. This meant that the ninth realm had suffered a serious illness. What's going on? The ninth realm roared. It felt that its old wounds had suddenly worsened. Back then, when it was chased by the nine-star civilizations, it was not unscathed. Instead, it was heavily injured. Otherwise, how could it be willing to curl up here instead of continuing to slaughter the world? After many years of recuperation, his injuries had already stabilized and showed signs of healing. However, after fighting with Suyu just now, all of his injuries had erupted for some unknown reason, causing his body to be in intense pain. Oh, it's acting up much faster than I thought. A tender laugh echoed in the space-time swamp. The ninth realm's expression changed. He looked into the sky and shouted, White snow, you old woman, how dare you scheme against me? It finally understood what the problem was. It was the two members of the Temple of Heaven who had been swallowed by it just now. They had been tricked by white snow into coming here to die. They must have had some secret medicine on them, and when it swallowed the medicine, the white snow's eyes widened. The secret medicine took effect and triggered his old wounds. Originally, Bai Shui had been waiting for the ninth realm's injuries to act up on their own. It would have taken at least a few days. However, because of the battle with Suyu, the medicine's effect had sped up, causing his old injuries to flare up prematurely. Hee, I'm so cute. It's really hard to be happy that you call me an old woman. Crash. The sky above the swamp, which had been covered by the chaotic space-time all year round, suddenly looked like the dark clouds had been pushed aside to reveal the bright moon. All the chaotic energy had retreated, revealing the clear sky above. A woman dressed in a snow-white robe, with snow-white hair and a petite figure like a 14-year-old girl, led a group of experts dressed in all kinds of clothes and gathered above her head like a dark cloud. The pupils of the ninth realm constricted. The temple master of the heavenly Tao temple and the ancient sages of the big clans. The forces of a nine-star civilization were divided into three levels. They were the aristocratic families, the sacred race, and the primal chaos heavenly clan. The primal chaos heavens clan was established by the descendants of the sacred mountain. The strongest of them were known as the myriad saints, meaning that they were the strongest existences beneath the sun of heaven. Next was the sacred race. Every sacred race had an existence that had become a saint. The strongest among them was known as a great saint. Finally, there were the great clans and great clans. The peak experts of the great clans and great clans were known as ancient sages. The cultivation of an ancient sage was equivalent to that of a first-stage, late-stage Heaven's Tao Lord. Great sages were the second level. Wan Sheng, on the other hand, was at the third level of the late stage of the Tao of Heaven. Although they all seemed to be late-stage, heavenly Tao Lords, the difference in strength between them was like the difference between heaven and earth. The difference of one level was like the difference between heaven and earth. The people before him were all ancient sages of the major powers. The most powerful one was the temple master of the Temple of Heaven, whose strength was almost at the level of a great sage. His old injury was caused by the few great sages who were chasing after him that day. If it had been the past, it would have treated these ancient sages as nothing more than snacks. Who would have thought that White Snow would somehow find out that it had an old injury, and that an expert had given it pointers to create a secret medicine that would relapse its old injury? It had even tricked 2 of its own people to come to their deaths, allowing the secret medicine to successfully enter their bodies. The most unfortunate thing was that the human race's sacred body happened to be there and fought with it, forcing the secret medicine to relapse. It did not know how much of its strength it could use now. Little dragon snake, can't you be a little more obedient and return with us? White Snow blinked. Would you rather the sacred race and the primal Chaos Heavens clan obtain it than give us a chance? The 9th realm symbolized the limits of domains. How many people desired it? If they could refine it for their own use, it would be equivalent to having the qualifications to break through to the absolute beginning body. The major powers had been suppressed by the sacred ancestor and the primal Chaos Heavens clan for a long time, and there were very few opportunities for them to make a comeback. However, the 9th realm was completely different. As long as it was refined, it could at least become a great sage. Scram! The 9th realm endured the pain and roared. Do you believe that I will eat all of you? Sure, White Snow said with a smile. I will give it to you as a gift. Her body trembled, and a mysterious medicinal powder fell from the sky. The 9th realm immediately dodged with all its might. The medicinal powder was very likely what had caused its old injuries. However, White Snow laughed. What are you afraid of? That's just pepper powder. The 9th realm was furious after being teased. Bastard, do you really think that I can't do anything to you? When a tiger fell to the plains, it would be bullied by a dog. It opened its mouth and spat out a 9-colored flame. It soared into the sky and covered most of the sky. Domain Extreme Flame. The 9th realm roared. White Snow's expression changed. She immediately spread out with everyone else, causing the Domain Extreme Flame to miss. She stared at the dissipating flames with a trace of fear in her eyes. Back then, she had personally seen the 9th realm's Domain Extreme Flame burn 3 great sages and 100 ancient sages to death. Even her body had a hideous burn scar that had yet to heal. Occasionally, she would feel intense pain. An epoch had passed, but her injuries were still there. Luckily, the 9th realm was not as ferocious as before. The power of the Domain Extreme Flame was also far weaker. Otherwise, they would all have died from that flame. White Snow narrowed her eyes. The surrounding ancient sages also noticed the 9th realm's weakness. Now was their only chance to kill him. The 9th realm was extremely cunning. Without waiting for them to attack, he immediately used the Domain Shield. White Snow and the others attacked. All sorts of peak treasure techniques and countless Tao artifacts came crashing down like a storm. Ding, ding, ding. The Domain Shield was much weaker than before, and a large number of cracks immediately appeared on it. After holding on for a moment, it shattered. Just as the attack was about to land, he once again used his pseudo-realm. However, the pseudo-realm was far weaker than when he fought Suyu. It only lasted for a moment before it was shattered. Countless attacks landed on the 9th realm's body. His 9-color body was immediately torn apart, and he was in great pain. White Snow had a hint of suppressed excitement in her eyes. Continue. The 9th realm was a great opportunity. If they could obtain it, it would be a chance to reach the heavens in a single step. The 9th realm was furious. He roared, I'm going to kill you all. Roar. He opened his mouth and spat out a remnant wrapped in 9-colored light. The remnant was very simple, as if someone had casually scratched it with a finger. However, That finger contained the boundless mysteries of the Great Path. Suyu, who was watching in the dark, felt his eyebrows twitch. His heart could not help but beat faster. Not only that, but the ultimate ruin's divine tablet in his arms was also vibrating. Chapter 2906. Once the remnant appeared, the dark clouds rolled back. The chaotic space-time domain burst like bubbles. Not only that, the attacks that were aimed at the ninth realm all disappeared on their own. It was as if the remnant was the ancestor of all secret techniques. Any secret technique that encountered it would have to submit to it and become its king. Bai Shui and the other ancient sages saw that they had a chance to suppress the ninth realm, but they didn't expect the opponent to suddenly use a never-before-seen remnant. It destroyed all their attacks. However, this wasn't the scariest part. The scariest part was that they realized that all their secret techniques were useless. They even lost the ability to fly. They were like normal people. The group of ancient sages lost all their techniques and fell from the sky. Luckily, their cultivation levels were high, so their bodies were strong, so they weren't injured. However, losing all their techniques made them uneasy. Bai Shui's eyes turned. She saw that the situation wasn't good, so she turned and ran. She didn't care about the ninth realm at all. Once she left, the ancient sages lost their morale. They all turned and ran. Run! The ninth realm was ferocious as it controlled the remnant. Countless mysterious divine techniques were released from the remnant marks. Every single one of them was vast and encompassed tens of thousands of races. These were the top secret techniques of the various races that were created from the remnant. Many ancient sages lost the ability to use their secret techniques and were attacked by the top secret techniques of the various races. The consequences were obvious. In an instant, cries of pain sounded. Many ancient sages fell into pools of blood and died on the spot. Bai Shui didn't need to turn around to know what was happening. Her face was filled with fear. She didn't even dream that the ninth realm was hiding such a powerful remnant. All of you die. Cough, 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 cough. The ninth realm roared in anger. Suddenly, it started coughing violently. It coughed out a large amount of nine-color blood. The remnant he controlled trembled uncontrollably and fell to the ground. Bai Shui and the others, who were about to escape, stopped in their tracks. They could tell that the ninth realm's remnant seemed to have caused a serious backlash. It caused its old injuries to erupt. The ninth realm screamed in pain. One could see the attacks from the remnant reflected in its eyes. This was the disadvantage of being the ancestor of all techniques. It had to suffer the same amount of secret techniques as it used them. In other words, it was suffering as much as the ancient sages suffered. Otherwise, if the remnant did not have any drawbacks, the ninth realm would have used it when he was fighting Suyu. Why would he wait until he was about to die? The ninth realm warrior rolled on the ground. In the blink of an eye, he was on the verge of death. He didn't even have the strength to get up. How could he still fight? Bai Shui and the others were overjoyed. The heavens are helping us. She took out a suppressive treasure and tossed it into the air, preparing to suppress the ninth realm. The ninth realm had completely lost its ability to fight back. It could only watch as it was suppressed. His eyes were filled with sorrow and unwillingness. In the end, it still failed, walking on the path of supreme being, becoming someone else's wedding dress. I can't believe it. At this moment, a beam of destructive light swept over without warning, shattering Bai Shui's treasure into dust. At the same time, a spatial domain appeared and swept the ninth domain far away. Bai Shui and the others were shocked. It has companions. Stop him. I'll go find the ninth realm. Several ancient sages charged in the direction of the light beam in anger, while Bai Shui chased after the ninth realm. At this moment, the ninth realm was holding the remnant in its mouth, looking at the source of the light beam with a complicated expression. How could it not recognize that light beam? It was Suyu's great sickle of 10,000 calamity. I didn't expect the one who saved me to be my enemy. The ninth realm laughed mockingly, then activated its spatial domain. The spatial domain was twice as strong as Suyu's, and the distance it could travel was beyond imagination. In a few breaths, the ninth realm was far away from Bai Shue's sensing range, quickly disappearing. Bai Shue was furious. Damn it! The ninth realm was right in front of them. Such a rare opportunity had been destroyed by a mysterious person. How could they ever find a similar opportunity in the future? This is infuriating. Bai Shue turned around angrily, returning to the scene. A group of ancient sages were surrounding a mysterious black-robed man. The latter was relying on the great sickle of 10,000 calamity and seemed invincible. Not only were they not suppressed, but they were completely suppressed. The other party clearly did not have much killing intent. Otherwise, they would have died on the spot. Seeing that Bai Shue had returned, Suyu put away the great sickle of 10,000 calamity and immediately fled. He wanted to use the yin-yang gate of the Palace of Heaven to prevent them from becoming mortal enemies. The reason he let the ninth realm go was because he did not want it to fall into the hands of the Palace of Heaven. The ninth realm could only be obtained by Suyu. Chase him, Bai Shue said angrily. How could she allow Suyu to escape? Her strength was obviously higher than the other ancient sages. Suyu could shake off the other ancient sages, but he could not shake off Bai Shue. Her movement technique was comparable to Jinhua Tianzi's body. Under such circumstances, Suyu could only roll up his sleeves and take Wen Cheng and the ninth realm into his cavern world to prevent their appearances from being remembered. You let go of the ferocious ninth realm and helped the evildoer. The Palace of Heaven will not rest until you are dead. Bai Shue said angrily as she chased after Suyu. Suyu did not even turn his head. He said in a man's voice, "You don't have to be so pompous. You deceived 2 members of the Palace of Heaven to sacrifice themselves. You are not a righteous person." Bai Shue's eyes flashed. She raised her hand and took out a Dao artifact in the shape of a seal. She threw it far away. "Stay here." So you did not even look at it. He used the space origin realm and disappeared. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared in front of Bai Shue. Another space origin realm? What is his relationship with the ninth realm? Bai Shue was even more certain that the two were in cahoots. Suyu frowned slightly. If he used his full strength, he could easily defeat or even kill Bai Shue. How troublesome. Suyu's eyes flashed as he chased after the ninth realm. His original intention was to throw the ninth realm aside and reclaim it himself. However, Bai Shue was keeping a close eye on him, which seriously affected his plan. By the time he arrived, the ninth realm had already disappeared without a trace. Stupid girl. Suyu turned around and glared at her. He stopped running and turned around to charge at her. "You're in the way." Bai Shue laughed coldly. "Let me see who you really are." She displayed the formidable cultivation of a peak ancient sage and took out the great seal again, pressing it towards Suyu from afar. In an instant, the words "heavenly law" appeared on Suyu's chest. Shortly after, the 2 words transformed into pitch-black chains, which tightly bound Suyu's entire body. Seeing this, Bai Shue clapped her hands and said proudly, "Going against me?" She walked forward and was about to press Suyu to the ground. However, something strange happened. Chapter 29:07. The black chains on Suyu's body broke apart inch by inch. How could an ordinary Dao artifact seal the body of Heavenly Prince Mirrorflower? Bai Shue screamed, her petite body jumping back, trying to put some distance between them. But it was too late for her to react. Suyu grabbed her wrist and pinned her to the ground. "Let me go." Bai Shue's strength exploded as she tried to break free. But she was shocked to find that Suyu's hand was like a rock, tightly gripping her neck and pinning her to the ground. She could not resist. At this moment, Bai Shue finally realized that Suyu had been hiding his true strength. She was quick-witted and said, "I'm the palace master of the Palace of Heaven. Killing or hurting me won't do you any good." Suyu said calmly, "If I wanted to kill you, you and your companions would have died long ago." Bai Shue was relieved. "Let me go and I won't hold you accountable. Our grudges will be written off." "How about that?" "Nothing," Suyu said calmly. "You were a hindrance. You let the ninth realm escape, and now you want to write it off?" Hearing this, Bai Shue was furious. "Weren't you the one who was a hindrance? I was about to succeed, but you interfered and allowed the ninth realm to escape. However, she was under Su Yu's control and did not dare argue. What do you want then? She asked. To make it up to me, of course. Su Yu touched her body. She was the palace master of the Heavenly Law Palace. She should have some extraordinary items on her. It would be great if the legendary Yin-Yang Gate was with him. Don't touch me, Bai Shui shouted. Su Yu's hand did not shy away, touching her all over. Su Yu pretended not to hear her. Soon, he took out a large space storage device. Looking inside, there were all kinds of precious resources, more than what Su Yu had accumulated in his entire life. In particular, there were many special Tao artifacts, similar to the ones made by the charming Empress of the Nine Serenities. He could refine them and use them. These must have been prepared for the members of the Heavenly Law Palace. In addition, there were all kinds of divine techniques, currencies, and so on. These were no longer important to Su Yu. He opened his spatial storage device and poured out everything except the Tao artifacts. Looking at the mountain of items, White Snow was both angry and furious, but more than that, she felt that it was strange. Su Yu poured out almost everything, including the high-level divine techniques and secret techniques unique to the Heavenly Law Palace. It must be known that many people had begged them for these secret techniques, but none of them had been able to obtain them. Su Yu, on the other hand, had actually given up on them. What was he thinking? Wasn't that a little silly? How could she have known that Su Yu had mastered the ultimate ruins divine steel, which recorded all the supreme divine techniques of the myriad clans in the world? Why would he care about her collection? Unexpectedly, however, White Snow did not make a sound. Instead, she looked as if she was humiliated but did not dare to say anything. Pa! Unexpectedly, Su Yu slapped her butt and said, "There's still a hidden space storage device. Hand it over." Bai Shui felt as if she had been electrocuted. Didn't you get everything? There was a trace of panic in the depths of his eyes. These are just ordinary space storage devices. There's nothing valuable in them, Su Yu said calmly. You're not going to tell me that you left all your valuables in the Heavenly Law Palace, are you? The more powerful a person was, the more they liked to carry their valuables with them, because their own tyrannical strength was the best insurance. No! Bai Shui clenched her teeth. She had thought that Su Yu would be satisfied with the space storage artifact. In the end, Su Yu was an experienced robber. He could tell with one look that there was another special space storage artifact. Oh, Su Yu nodded, grabbing her pink clothes and tearing them apart. What are you doing? Bai Shui screamed, instinctively resisting, but was pressed to the ground by Su Yu, unable to move. Su Yu did not say a word. He tore off all of her clothes and stripped her naked, revealing her entire body. Then, as expected, he saw a crystal gem embedded in her chest. It was a small space storage device, made from or unique to the Nine-Star Civilization. The space inside was only the size of a bag, and the items it could store were extremely limited. What was valuable was that the crystal gem was indestructible and required a special spell to activate. External forces could not break it open. Pervert, shameless bastard. Bai Shui's hands were in front of her chest, but she could not protect the gem, and the gem could not be protected. Her hands moved back and forth, unable to protect the gem. Behave yourself. Su Yu slapped her hand away and unceremoniously took the gemstone from her chest. He said indifferently, "Who asked you to chase after me?" Bai Shui wanted to cry. If she could go back in time, she would definitely stay as far away from Su Yu as possible. Why would she chase him? But Bai Shui was not particularly worried. The gem was indestructible, and Su Yu had no use for it. Su Yu held the gem in his palm and looked at it seriously. It's a bit like the half-real realm, and there was only one way to deal with the half-real realm. The 8 great realms. Even the half-real realm could not escape the support of the 8 great realms. As long as the 8 great realms were destroyed, the half-real realm would collapse on its own. It's good that you know, don't waste your effort. Bai Shui snorted. Let me tell you, I will definitely not reveal any spells. I can guarantee it with my life. Even if you torture me, I will not say a word. Instead of wasting time, why don't you return it to me and tell me what you want? The Heavenly Law Palace might be able to help you. Su Yu's palm paused. I want the Yin-Yang Gate. can you get to me? The yin-yang gate? Bai Shui blinked and nodded. No problem. Absolutely. Su Yu sighed. Don't blink when you're lying. I didn't blink. Bai Shui blinked, then opened her eyes. I'm not lying. So you can't give me the yin-yang gate, right? Su Yu asked. He released the 8 great realms under Bai Shui's stunned gaze. He used his own great realms to resonate with the 8 great realms within the gem. Crack! The 8 great realms quickly crumbled, and the gem naturally shattered. A ball of space energy surged from within. There were 3 items wrapped within the backpack-sized space. One was an antique wooden seal with an aura of vicissitudes circulating around it. It had existed for a very long time, for words were clearly carved on the seal. Seal of the Heavenly Law Palace. This was the seal that symbolized the master of the Heavenly Law Palace. Good stuff, I want it. Su Yu grabbed the seal of the Heavenly Law Palace and stuffed it into his space storage device. Chapter 2908. You could take anything but this, she exclaimed. Really? Su Yu took out another item from the space. It was a stone statue filled with a thick aura of chaos. Countless words were written on the base of the stone statue. Su Yu did not know what it was, but he knew that it was definitely something good. Take it. Don't take this, I'll die. Bai Shui begged. Su Yu's face tightened. Didn't you say that I could take anything? Only this. Bai Shui said. Su Yu shook his head. You never make sense of anything you say. Just now you said that only the seal could not be taken away, and now you're saying that only the stone statue could not be taken away. From this, it can be seen that everything here can be taken away. Bai Shui was trembling with anger. What kind of robber's logic was this to come to such a ridiculous conclusion? So, the last item can be taken away, right? Su Yu asked. Bai Shui shook her head. Absolutely not. Su Yu reached out and took it out. Don't say things that go against your heart. If you wanted to take it away, just say so. Isn't it better to be honest? Shameless pervert. Bai Shui clawed at the ground in anger. Su Yu said nonchalantly, I'm not as shameless as you. He loosened his grip and threw it to the side as if he was throwing away trash. He waved his hand and said, all right, let's go. Bai Shui looked at Su Yu's space storage artifact, biting her lip. Each of those 3 items was of utmost importance and could not be lost. If you really want to take it away, you might as well kill me, she said as she picked up the clothes on the ground, barely wrapping them around her body. Su Yu weighed the last item in his hand. It looked like an ordinary Tao artifact, but in reality, it was no less powerful than the sinful sword. But the most important thing was not the Tao artifact itself, but the fact that it was a letter. The words on it were the most important. No matter how rich a 9-star civilization was, they could not use a Tao artifact on the level of the sinful sword to send messages. If you can answer one of my questions, I can return this to you, Su Yu said with a glint in his eyes. Bai Shui rolled her eyes. What is it? She also attached great importance to that Tao artifact. What I want to know is how to obtain the yin-yang gate of the Heavenly Law Palace, Su Yu asked. Unfortunately, White Snow didn't have the yin-yang gate. Don't try to deceive me. It's meaningless. Bai Shui thought for a while and said, there's no other way. The yin-yang gate is in the hands of the Grand Hall Master. Outsiders can't even touch it. And the Grand Hall Master? As if sensing Su Yu's doubt, Bai Shui said, you don't think that all the previous palace masters of the Heavenly Law Palace are dead, do you? Su Yu came to a sudden realization. A 9-star civilization could not be compared to an 8-star civilization. There was no such thing as an apocalypse. A living being could live for several epochs. After countless accumulations, it was entirely possible for the Temple of Heaven to have more than 2 temple masters. From White Snow's tone, it seemed like there was more than one Grand Hall Master. How's his power? Su Yu asked. If there was no other way, he could only kill his way to the Temple of Heaven and rob the yin-yang gate. Why? Do you think you can press them to the ground and rob them of everything like I did? Bai Shui said angrily. They are all ancient saints. Furthermore, every one of them has befriended many great saints. All you have to do is send a message, and great saints will come immediately. Even though your power is not bad, in front of great saint, it's honestly not enough. So you could use the great sickle of 10,000 calamity to fight a peak ancient saint. But it might not be the same for a great saint. The Temple of Heaven had existed for such a long time that it naturally had a wide network of people. He couldn't help but feel a headache coming on. Neither would it work. Would it be like this for the rest of his life? It's really difficult to use the yin-yang gate. So you fell into deep thought. You just want to use it? Bai Shui made a fuss. So you rolled his eyes. What else could I do? Bai Shui rolled her eyes and stared at the item in Su Yu's hand. Who would have thought that someone as greedy as you would only want to use it and not take it for yourself? Su Yu understood the hidden meaning in her words. Tell me, how do you use the yin-yang gate? Bai Shui clapped her hands. Actually, it's very simple. The Temple of Heaven distributes a few missions to the outside world every year. As long as you complete them, you will receive a reward. You can convert the reward into using the yin-yang gate. The two do not conflict. But the prerequisite is that you have your own faction, which has to be at least at the level of a large clan. Otherwise, a faction with a lower level wouldn't even have the right to accept the mission. So he was suddenly enlightened. My own faction? It looked like he still had to reorganize the many factions in the abandoned civilization. That way, he could quickly expand his own strength and reach the level of a large clan. All right, I'll return this to you, Su Yu said, keeping his promise. Bai Shui was delighted, laughing to herself. What a fool. This item is even more important than the other two. However, his face stiffened shortly after because Su Yu had said something else. Anyway, I also have a share. With a wave of his hand, another invitation appeared in his palm. The two were exactly the same. You dare to fake something like this? Bai Shui's jaw dropped. No, you probably don't know where this invitation came from, do you? I know. Isn't it just an invitation from a Saint clan? So you looked at the Tao artifact in his hand. With a touch of his palm, a ray of 9-colored light pulsed inside, and the words inside appeared. Oh, it's an invitation from a Saint clan of craftsmen to witness the birth of the absolute heaven sword. Patter! Bai Shui was dumbfounded. She was so shocked that she dropped the Tao artifact in her hand. You can actually activate the words inside? She said in a daze. Su Yu asked, why is it that difficult? He looked carefully and realized, is this the power of the saint body? Within the 9-colored light, there was a hint of the power of the saint body. How did you do it? Bai Shui was shocked. I obtained the invitation by accident, but neither I nor the palace grandmasters could open the Tao artifact and read its contents. The only thing we know is that the invitation probably came from the famous Sword Saint clan of the 9-star civilizations. The Sword Saint clan is ranked 3rd among the Saint clans. They are extremely powerful, and their overall strength is close to that of the Chaotic Heavens clan. Their invitation is no small matter. But how did you open it? So you knew that he could open it because he also had the saint body. The power of the saint body contained within resonated with him, and he opened the letter. Chapter 2909. Bai Shui moved closer and looked at Su Yu again. Are you Ho-E from one of the saint clans? All the invitations are only given to the saint clans. The most suspicious thing was that Su Yu's strange magical powers were too powerful. He had single-handedly suppressed her in a group of ancient sages, and she had fallen into his hands. In the 9-star civilizations, such a young and powerful person could only be the Ho-E of the saint clans. Guess, even if you guess correctly. I won't tell you, Su Yu said without hesitation. Bai Shui's cheeks puffed up. There's nothing likable about you. That's right, every single hair on your body is annoying. Thank you for the compliment. Su Yu replied absent-mindedly. In his heart, he was pondering where the Sacred Sword Tribe's invitation letter came from. Didn't they say that the Sacred Sword Clan and the Sacred Mountain Emperor were each other's nemesis? Those who could kill the Sacred Mountain Emperor must have the Sacred Body. Those who could kill the Sacred Mountain Emperor must be the Sacred Mountain Emperor. If the Sacred Sword Clan had the Sacred Sword Clan, why would the Sacred Mountain Emperor be so indifferent? The 9-star civilizations were under the watchful eyes of the Sacred Mountain Emperor, and the chaotic heavenly clan was everywhere. The existence of the Sacred Sword Clan should not have been able to hide it. Moreover, The invitation contained the Sacred Sword Clan's Sacred Sword Clan did not intend to hide it. Hey, tell me. Bai Shui rolled her eyes, not intending to leave. Instead, she was extremely curious. Even her tone was much better, and her attitude was no longer nasty. You want to know? So you looked at her. She nodded repeatedly and blinked her large eyes. Hurry up and tell me, she said coquettishly. So you chuckled. Old woman, don't pretend to be a little girl. It's better for us to be more practical. Bai Shui looked 14 years old, but she was actually an old monster who had lived for many years. Su Yu's seniority was not even comparable to Hou Yi's. Practical? Sure. Bai Shui smiled, letting go of her tattered clothes, revealing her snow-white skin. She said coquettishly, what do you want to be more practical? So you turned a blind eye to it. After all, he had already stripped her naked just now and had seen everything he wanted to see. So, what could possibly attract him now that she had revealed a little? What I'm talking about is this. So you waved the fake invitation in his hand. You are very concerned about this invitation. I think you don't just want to witness the birth of the absolute heaven sword, right? This white snow was extremely cunning. For her to be so serious about the Sword Saint clan's invitation, there had to be great benefits. Bai Shui averted her eyes. What's in it? So you shrugged his shoulders indifferently. Holding his forged invitation, he stood up and said, Fine, I'll go by myself. Bai Shui panicked. She did have an invitation, but she had to activate it, just like Su Yu had done just now. Su Yu was the only one known to be able to undo the invitation. Sigh. Fine, I'll tell you. Bai Shui stomped her foot unwillingly. With Su Yu's unrelenting attitude, he would probably take more than half of the benefits. Before the birth of the absolute heaven sword, an era's worth of pure energy will leak out. We, as visitors, have the right to obtain a portion. With this energy, I might even be able to break through to the great saint level. Indeed, there were great benefits to be had. No wonder Bai Shui valued it so highly. The further one cultivated, the more difficult it would be to progress. Normal treasures had almost lost their effect on the master of the heaven law. Only items with great energy could satisfy the need for a breakthrough. Su Yu's eyes glowed. How could he miss such a rare opportunity? Even though it would be difficult to become an ancient saint in one step, he would at least be one step closer to becoming an ancient saint. All right, farewell. Su Yu elegantly turned around and left. What? Bai Shui's eyes widened. You're not planning to bring me along? She said, waving the invitation in her hand. Did I say I would bring you along? Su Yu asked. Bai Shui was going crazy. Su Yu was too shameless. She had already told him the truth, but he was still acting shamelessly. You're not allowed to leave, or I'll kill myself in front of you. She pounced forward and hugged Su Yu's thigh. Su Yu chuckled. Give me a reason to bring you along. The famous Sword Sacred Tribe only recognizes the invitation, not the person. I can go alone without any problems. Bai Shui hurriedly said, but I am the palace master of the Heavenly Law Palace. Following me would be safer. So you disagreed. Safer? The people going are all Sacred Tribe members. What use would you be if you went with the identity of the Heavenly Law Palace? Bai Shui was speechless. She really was useless. Farewell. So you turned to leave. Wait, you need someone to lead the way, right? Bai Shui blurted out in a panic. So you stopped in his tracks. He really didn't need someone to lead the way. He had no idea where the famous Sword Sacred Tribe was. All right, that's a good reason. Su Yu nodded. Bai Shui was stunned, looking at Su Yu in a daze. So many reasons had been defeated by a mere reason to lead the way. She felt that her brain was lacking, unable to keep up with Su Yu's train of thought. Then wait a moment. I'll comfort my companions. Bai Shui looked at Su Yu. Su Yu nodded. Go. Bai Shui immediately returned to her original spot. A group of ancient sages from the great clans were healing and cleaning up the mess. This time, they had suffered heavy casualties. More than half of the 20 ancient sages who had come with them had been killed by the Ninth Realm's remnant scars. The rest had been injured by Su Yu. Palace Master of the Heavenly Law Palace, you have to take responsibility for this operation. One of the injured elders had half his body covered in water, and the other half in fire. He said this meaningfully as he healed his injuries. As soon as he said this, the rest of the people began to complain. That's right. You were the one who said that the ninth realm was heavily injured and that we had absolute confidence in subduing it. But what happened in the end? We hid it from the Supreme Palace Master and our clansmen to secretly come to help you, but we still caused such heavy casualties. Bai Shui did not refute the crowd's accusations. She silently accepted them all. She waited until they were done blaming her before saying in a low voice, I will compensate you for this incident. You can rest assured that I will not shirk responsibility. Just as they had said, this operation had been kept secret from the outside world. They had not expected it to cause such heavy casualties. The 20 or so ancient sages from the great clans all had deep ties with the Palace of Heavenly Law. Because of her decision, they had suffered such heavy losses. There will be no small amount of trouble in the future. Compensate? How? That's easy for you to say. The half-fire, half-water elders sneered. For this operation, our sacrifices are immeasurable. Chapter 29:10. Bai Shui bit her red lips and said, To tell you the truth, I'm going to a place this time to get enough primordial energy for you, even if it costs me my life. It'll be enough to make up for the damage you've suffered, as well as the fallen ancient saints. Primordial energy? The pupils of the fire and water elders shrank. Are you sure you're not talking nonsense? The fire and water elders questioned. In today's 9-star civilizations, the wilderness that still contains primordial energy has long been dug clean. Only the Holy Clan and the chaotic Heavenly Clan might still have some. Where are you going to get primordial energy for us? Bai Shui raised her fingers and said, I swear to the Palace of Heaven that I will bring it back for you. If I can't, I'll never come back. Only then did the ancient saints finally believe her. Swearing to the Palace of Heaven was no small matter. If she broke her promise, it was likely that the punishment would come true. That was never to come back. All right, we'll believe you for now. We'll keep the matter here a secret and not let the Supreme Palace Master know. Then we'll wait for the good news from the Palace Master. The fire and water elders were all smiles. If she could really bring back enough primordial energy, what would her injuries amount to? She might even be able to break through to the great saint level. Bai Shui nodded and immediately went to meet up with Su Yu. Su Yu seemed to be sitting on a rock casually, but there were two eyes turning in his palm. They were looking at the place where Bai Shui had been. I'm back. I was afraid you'd run away. Bai Shui had changed into a snow-white dress again, making her petite and exquisite body look like a little princess of the royal family. Su Yu calmly closed his palm. When he opened it again, the eyes had disappeared. What have you been doing for so long? Su Yu stood up and asked casually. Bai Shui laughed. What do you think I could do? I'm a bad person. Of course I'm up to no good. Why are you afraid? She waved her small fist and snorted. Su Yu looked at her meaningfully and said indifferently, Lead the way. Bai Shui withdrew her fist in confusion. That's not right. Shouldn't this guy talk back and make me angry? Why did he suddenly change? Even though she was confused, it was better that Su Yu didn't cause her trouble. Half a day later, regardless of whether it was Su Yu and the others or the ancient saints of the great clans, all of them had left the scene, leaving behind only the aftermath of the battle. The space-time swamp, which was once known as one of the forbidden areas of the 9-star civilizations, had been completely destroyed by the remnant of the Heavenly Law Master. Soon after, a group of stone men rushed over, including the black-robe leader who had issued the order to arrest Wencheng. Staring at the traces of battle on the ground, the black-robed leader's expression changed. What happened here? There were some traces of battle left behind, and it was so terrifying that it made people shudder. Did the two people who faked the official documents die inside? The black-robed leader was still brooding over the fact that Su Yu was able to block the petrification of the golden giant boulder. A group of people searched around. After a long time, they shook their heads. We didn't find the bodies of the girl and her companions. How troublesome. The black-robed leader had a cold look in his eyes. Lord Xiongqi just emphasized that we need to tighten the checks at the entrance. Yet two people with fake documents came in. His confidant rolled his eyes and said, Sir, why are you worried? It's just two people who came in. It has nothing to do with the overall situation. Lord Xiongqi might not know about it. The black-robed leader was silent for a long time. Then he sighed deeply and said, I hope so. I hope that the black-robed person will not affect Lord Xiongqi's plan. In a faraway, dilapidated civilization, a tragic scene was unfolding in a dilapidated civilization that was emitting a weak glow. Numerous flying doctrine artifacts with skull flags were flying over the dilapidated civilization like locusts passing by. Mysterious people with skull marks on their chests jumped down from the flying doctrine artifacts. The Skull Team. When the strong fighters of the civilization discovered the identity of the newcomers, they were filled with despair. The Skull Team was a ghost that wandered in the dilapidated civilization. They would appear at any time and harvest the entire dilapidated civilization. They would kill all the men, abduct all the women, and rob all the resources. Wherever they passed, the dilapidated civilization would be destroyed. Over the years, many dilapidated civilizations had fallen victim to them. As the strong fighters of the dilapidated civilization looked at the Skull Team that was descending upon them, they were filled with despair. In their despair, they were ready to fight to the death. The Wave Sky civilization swears not to surrender. As the 6 shouts came from the dilapidated civilization, 6 Heavenly Law Lord middle stage experts soared into the sky. They fought against the Skull Team that was descending like a storm. Although they were powerful, how could they be a match for the Skull Team that was terror-stricken? After struggling for a while, they began to scream miserably. The rest of the powerhouses were quickly defeated, and they ended up being injured. I've long heard that the Wave Sky civilization is the strongest dilapidated civilization among the 1,000 nearby dilapidated civilizations. Now that I've seen it for myself, it really doesn't live up to its name. Ha ha! They're all trash that can't even withstand a single blow. I alone can sweep through the Wave Sky civilization. Brothers, the women and resources of the Wave Sky civilization are all yours. Kill. The Skull Team descended like a dark cloud, giving all living beings endless despair. However, at this moment, a deep sigh came from the depths of the Wave Sky civilization. Skull Team, I don't want to bother with you. Why must you force me to take action? With a cold snort, the ground of the Wave Sky civilization split open. A white-robed old man slowly walked out from the ground. His aura was calm, but every move he made contained a majestic power that could affect the heavens and earth. The Skull Team members that were about to descend retreated frantically, their faces filled with shock. Old Ancestor Lon Tion? The expressions of the Skull Team members changed drastically. Old Ancestor Lon Tion was the ancestor of the Wave Sky civilization. He was also the guardian of this dilapidated civilization. However, since half an era ago, he had never appeared again. Many rumors said that he had already died. Because of this, the Skull Team dared to attack. Don't you think it's too late to leave now? Old Ancestor Lon Tion's plain white robe fluttered even though there was no wind. With a glare, thousands of skeleton members immediately turned into a mist of blood, and half of the sky was dyed red. Then he swiped his finger in the sky, and a string of Skull Team members were crushed into pieces. The powerful Skull Team was like ants in front of Old Ancestor Lon Tion, and they were massacred. All the living beings of the Wave Sky civilization rejoiced. Old Ancestor Lon Tion. Old Ancestor is immortal. Just as Old Ancestor Lon Tion was slaughtering the Skull Team, an indifferent voice suddenly sounded from one of the ships. Ancient Sage Realm, Old Ancestor Lon Tion. We haven't seen each other for half an era, but you've still broken through to this stage. Chapter 2911. He couldn't help but say, Didn't you die in battle? That voice made the powerful and invincible ancestor Lon Tion panic. He stopped slaughtering and looked at the ship without blinking. There was a glimmer of hope in his eyes that the person in the ship was not the one he had imagined. The skeleton ship shook, and a man wearing a skull mask appeared at the bow of the ship. Only a pair of blood-red eyes could be seen under the mask. Seeing him, the last trace of hope in Ancestor Lon Tion's heart was completely shattered, and he couldn't help but gasp. Guy Tion Mo. Guy Tion Mo was the most mysterious and powerful leader of the Skull Team. His strength was unfathomable. At least, he was already invincible when they besieged him back then. The people of the world only knew that the Skull Unit was invincible, destroying civilizations after civilizations. But they did not know that in truth, half an era ago, the top experts of the broken civilizations had secretly assassinated the leader of the Skull Unit, Guy Tion Mo. In that battle, many experts of the broken civilization, including Ancestor Lon Tion, were severely injured. Most of the participants died in Guy Tion Mo's hands, and only a few of them survived, but they were also seriously injured. Ancestor Lon Tion didn't come out for half a century because he was healing. However, what he didn't expect was that Guy Tion Mo, who they had sacrificed countless people to kill back then, was still alive. He clearly remembered that they couldn't kill Guy Tion Mo in time. Why was he still alive? It seems you still remember me. Guy Tion Mo jumped off the warship and crossed his arms in front of his chest. His body fell down. When he fell in front of Divine Ancestor Lon Tion, he suddenly stopped and stared at Divine Ancestor Lon Tion with a pair of blood-red eyes. Have you thought about how to die? Divine Ancestor Lon Tion's heart jumped. Without thinking, he opened his mouth and spat out a folded yellow paper talisman. This was his strongest offensive magic treasure, and he'd always concealed it within his mouth for the sake of giving his enemy a strike of surprise when he encountered a formidable enemy that he couldn't resist. It was this paper talisman that gave Guy Tion Mo a heavy blow and decided the final outcome of that battle. This time, even if Guy Tion Mo was on guard, it was enough to trap him for a while and buy him time to escape. However, what shocked Divine Ancestor Lon Tion was that Guy Tianma had easily crushed the talisman paper with a simple grab. You probably misunderstood my current realm, Guy Tion Mo said lightly. He opened his palm, and a cloud of powder flew into the air. Divine Ancestor Lon Tion's pupils constricted, and he turned around and fled without hesitation. The current covering heaven demon was several times stronger than before. If he had been at Ancient Sage Pinnacle in the past, then he should be at Divine Ancestor Lon Tion didn't get very far before Guy Tianma appeared in front of her with a single step. His eyes were cold as he said, "Since you don't want to choose how to die, let me choose for you." His blood-red eyes suddenly lit up, and he stared hard. Divine Ancestor Lon Tion screamed and turned into a mist of blood. A transparent soul body escaped from the blood mist. But as soon as it moved, it was grabbed by Guy Tianma and then thrown into its mouth, eating it alive. Sacred Ancestor Lon Tion perished just like that, leaving behind a group of beings from the Lon Tion civilization who were filled with despair and disbelief. Their guardian god died, just like that. Guy Tianma stared coldly at the beings on the ground and said indifferently, "Destroy." Immediately, countless of the Skull Unit's experts flew down without any hesitation and started a one-sided massacre. 1 month later, the Lon Tion civilization became a sea of blood, and rotten corpses were everywhere. All the resources and women of the civilization were plundered. Guy Tianma slowly opened his eyes and said indifferently, "The next civilization, Heavenly Saint." Back then, the Heavenly Saint civilization had participated in the assassination of him. Now, he had to take revenge. But suddenly, a message came. Guy Tianma casually grabbed the message in his palm. His soul scanned, and his blood-red eyes flashed. Then, he immediately commanded the skeleton unit to go somewhere. When they arrived at a broken civilization, Guy Tianma flew down and saw a beautiful woman trapped in a water droplet on a desolate mountain peak. She was none other than Xiao Yan. Splash! The water droplet shattered, and the water condensed into a human figure. It was the members of the skeleton unit who had attacked the broken civilization. "Greetings, leader," the person said immediately after appearing. Guy Tianma looked at Xiao Yan and said indifferently, "You said that the two guardians were killed?" It turned out that the three people with this person were guardians of the skeleton unit. They were ordered to go to the Hao-Yin civilization to see how the skeleton unit's tamed demonic beasts were doing. Who would have thought that they would not return and meet with misfortune? Of course, Guy Tianma was not concerned about the guardians' lives, but about the demonic beasts. Yes, they were killed by an unknown black-robed person, the guardian said sadly. Please help us, leader, Guy Tianma said calmly. So, those demonic beasts have fallen into this person's hands. Yes, when we rushed over, they had already taken them. We tried our best. Guy Tianma nodded slowly. Thank you. He reached out and patted the black-robed person's shoulder lightly. But with just a light pat, the black-robed person did not even have time to scream before he turned into a pile of sand. Xiao Yin, who had just climbed up, screamed when she saw this scene. She hurriedly covered her mouth and stared at Guy Tianma in fear. She did not even dare to breathe. Guy Tianma said calmly, I don't like people who make excuses for failure. He turned to look at Xiao Yin. Where is that person? Xiao Yin did not dare to hide anything. She hurriedly said, he's in a small, broken civilization next to the Hao-Yin civilization. Please don't kill me, sir. Guy Tianma frowned slightly. Are there any decent broken civilizations in that civilization? Although his protectors weren't very strong, they weren't weak either. To be able to kill them, they were definitely not weak. Moreover, they could subdue all the demonic beasts. Xiao Yin's body trembled. I'm not lying. Guy Tianma looked at Xiao Yin and smiled. Lead the way. He grabbed Xiao Yin onto the warship and said, Change of target. Next destination, the Hao-Yin civilization. The members of the skeleton unit were shocked. Why did they suddenly change targets? Guy Tianma had hated the Heavenly Saint civilization for a long time. It's been too long since someone dared to challenge me, Guy Tianma murmured. He raised his finger and pointed at the dark, abandoned civilization. A terrifying jet-black light pierced through the darkness and destroyed everything in its path. The destructive shockwave that reverberated through the heavens and earth was not something that an ancient sage could release. He was already a great sage. Chapter 29:12. The dilapidated civilization was completely unaware that an evil and powerful dark cloud was slowly looming over. At the same time, in the distant 9-star civilization, Su Yu and Bai Shui disguised themselves and arrived at the territory of the Sword Sacred Tribe. The Sword Sacred Tribe was located in the oldest battlefield of the 9-star civilization, the Burial Battlefield. Rumor had it that this was the place where the Holy Mountain Emperor and the Absolute Beginning creatures fought fiercely. Generations of Absolute Beginning creatures had fought against the Holy Mountain, and this place had always been a battleground. In the previous era, when a Yuan ancestor had led the Absolute Beginning creatures to sweep across the battlefield, a terrible war had broken out here. It was said that the Yuan ancestor had used the life cauldron to sink half of the battlefield, leaving behind a terrifying pit called the Black Abyss. The skeletons that had been buried for countless eras were slowly awakened under the influence of the life cauldron. Those resurrected creatures were super experts who had participated in the war between the Holy Mountain and the Absolute Beginning creatures. The skeletons had survived for countless years. Now that they were resurrected, one could imagine how powerful they were. Rumor had it that every full moon, a huge, terrifying projection would appear from the Black Abyss. The projection would cover the sun, moon, and stars, stepping on the 9-star civilization. Wherever the projection shrouded, the creatures would be anxious for 3 days and 3 nights. The plants would wither, and the sun, moon, and stars would dim. An era had passed, but the projection had not disappeared. Instead, it had become more solid. Every full moon, it would appear in the vast world, covering the land of the 9-star civilization. Some people guessed that it was an ancient Absolute Beginning creature. Its power was probably second only to the Yuan ancestor. It must have been an existence that could fight against the Holy Mountain Emperor. Now that it had died for countless eras, it still held a deep hatred for the Holy Mountain. However, the world had been washed over by countless eras, and civilizations had collapsed countless times. The ancient history had long been lost, and no one had recorded it. No one knew who the owner of the projection was. On this day, this is the burial battlefield. Bai Shui stared at the desolate, ancient battlefield, her face full of shock. As far as the eye could see, there were skeletons half buried in the ground and various weapons protruding from the ground. After countless years of erosion, the weapons had decayed. The skeletons had lost their color and were weathering. If we cross the burial battlefield, we can reach the sword's sacred tribe. Bai Shui looked at the battlefield cautiously. Suyu nodded, but he did not take a step forward. Instead, he flicked his finger. A ray of light fell on the battlefield in front of him. In the end, a powerful ripple spread out from the ground of the battlefield and completely crushed the light. You're quite cautious. It's hard to harm you. Bai Shui shook her head. This light was the remnant power emitted by the countless corpses and weapons buried here. After settling here for so many years, it formed a layer of something similar to a protective membrane. Anything that came into contact with it would be destroyed instinctively by the residual power. Of course, it wasn't dangerous for Suyu, and he would just feel a little uncomfortable. However, he didn't expect that Suyu would be so cautious. Suyu replied calmly, "Is there even need to think about it? There's so many skeletons and corpses here, but no one has excavated them for so many years. There must be something unusual here. These corpses and weapons belong to ancient experts. How could anyone not be tempted? However, they were still the same as before. There must be a reason for this, which was why Suyu was being more cautious. Sai, I can't trick you. Let's go." A wisp of the heavenly law master's power appeared beneath Bai Shui's feet as she stepped into the air. Visible to the naked eye, a series of ripples continuously rippled under her feet. That was the result of the aftershocks attacking her. However, she was so powerful that the remnant power couldn't harm her. Suyu looked into the depths of the battlefield. None of the people who could enter the Sword Saint tribe were weaklings. They were all the strongest in the world. Suyu nodded and stepped onto the battlefield. He didn't use any power, but the remnant power attacking the soles of his feet couldn't cause any harm. What a monster, Bai Shui muttered. To be able to cross the burial sky battlefield without relying on his own power like Suyu did, he must be a great saint or above. Even as a peak ancient saint, she wouldn't dare cross the burial sky battlefield like that. "You talk too much," Suyu said calmly. He was about to walk forward when he suddenly looked back. Bai Shui also felt it. Her pupils shrank as she looked back. She immediately landed and pulled Suyu to the side. She even lowered her head, not daring to look at the newcomer. "Don't look," she whispered. Suyu didn't act rashly. He looked away after a quick glance. It seemed to be a blood-red palanquin. It was carried by 4 golden skeletons. It was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it had reached them and passed by. When they came into contact, Suyu smelled a thick stench of blood. He also felt an extremely terrifying gaze sweeping past the two of them. It was a very cold feeling that made them feel extremely uncomfortable. Moreover, he felt as if he had been seen through. Fortunately, the blood-red palanquin didn't stop. It went straight into the burial sky battlefield. But when Suyu looked over, he couldn't help but be surprised to find that the 4 golden skeletons were moving forward without touching the ground. The remnant power of the battlefield had no effect on them. If what Bai Shui said was true, then the 4 golden skeletons were all great saints. If the palanquin was carried by 4 great saints, then the person in the palanquin, just thinking about it, made Suyu serious. It seemed that the appearance of the absolute heaven sword of the famous Sword Saint clan had attracted countless powerful fighters. Bai Shui let out a long sigh of relief. Phew, how terrifying. To think that we would meet the old demon Shui here. Suyu asked, "Is the old demon Shui a great saint?" Bai Shui shook her head. "Not just a great saint. He ranks in the top 100 among the great saints." Only in the top 100? That was still a far cry from the 3rd-ranked famous Sword Saint clan. Seeing Suyu's disapproval, Bai Shui said, "Although the old demon Shui's ranking is not very high, he is definitely the most dangerous great saint to us ancient saints. Because of his cultivation, he often needs to capture ancient saints to eat. Countless ancient saints have been harmed by him." So he was slightly shocked. There was such an evil cultivator in the nine-star civilization as well. But is there no one to deal with him? Suyu asked. The Ninth Realm's massacre in the nine-star civilization had attracted the pursuit of countless powerful fighters. There was no reason for the old demon Shui to be safe. Bai Shui shrunk her neck. Who would dare provoke the old demon Shui? He is cruel and vengeful by nature. He is also proficient in blood techniques. There is no way to kill him. Bai Shui said, in the past, countless great saints tried to kill him. But what was the result? Every time they thought they had killed the old demon Shui, he would come back to life and take revenge on them one by one. Those who encircled him are all dead now. Chapter 29:13. In terms of strength, old demon Shui might not be the strongest. But in terms of ferocity, few great saints could match him. Other great saints would not bother with ordinary people unless it was necessary. But old demon Shui was different. Anyone who offended him, no matter how strong or weak, would seek revenge. That was why everyone was afraid of him. They were afraid of provoking him unintentionally. That was why Bai Shui was so afraid of him. Even old demon Shui is here. How could the other great saints be absent? Bai Shui smiled bitterly. She realized that she had been too naive. She had thought that deciphering the invitation would give her access to the primordial energy. She had even been perverted in front of the ancient saints. She could definitely make it up to them. Perhaps her words had come true, and she was really going to die here. Suyu had a feeling that the difficulty this time was not as optimistic as Bai Shui had predicted. There would definitely be many great saints present. Their goal should also be the primordial energy. One could imagine how intense the competition would be. But Suyu was not as pessimistic as Bai Shui. So what if there were many strong fighters? He might be able to find an opportunity in the cracks. This was not the first time he had encountered such a situation. But I must go to the Sword Saint clan. Despite her fear, Bai Shui did not forget her promise. Suyu praised her in his heart, expressionlessly saying, "Don't worry, we will definitely find something." In the next 3 days, the two of them traversed the burial battlefield, seeing countless remnants of ancient battlefields along the way. They continued until they reached the side of a gigantic pit. The pit was boundless, with no end in sight. Just as the rumors had said, half of the burial battlefield had been smashed by the human ancestor with the life cauldron, becoming the famous Black Abyss. Standing at the edge of the Black Abyss, looking down into the bottomless abyss, it gave one an unsuppressible sense of fear. It was as if there was an ancient being inside that could devour anyone who passed by at any time. Suyu, who had mastered the 8 elements, could clearly feel that there was something inhuman moving in the depths of the Black Abyss. No, not only was there something inhuman, but there were also living beings within. There seems to be a sound inside. Bai Shui finally sensed it, staring straight into the depths of the Black Abyss. The sound seemed to be getting closer and closer. Both of them retreated cautiously, and when they were about 10,000 feet away, a cloud of black mist erupted from the dark abyss. 2 living beings hurriedly escaped from the black mist. Their bodies were covered in blood, and one of them was even more horrifying. His chest had been pierced through by a jet-black bone claw, and blood was flowing nonstop. However, he still came to the surface with determination. His companion's injuries were much better, but his strength was exhausted and his movements were slow. Crack, within the black mist, the sound of bones rubbing against each other could be heard. Taking a closer look, they were all densely packed skeletons. There was an extremely ancient aura lingering on these skeletons, and they were at least existences that surpassed an epoch. They were strangely shaped, and their eyes flickered with crimson flames, indicating that they had a weak intelligence. Although they were skeletons, their movements were extremely fast. With layers of afterimages, he arrived in front of them. The pitch-black bone claws turned into extremely sharp blades and slashed at their necks. "Oughta run." The one who had his chest pierced was a middle-aged man with coarse skin. He pushed away the young man, who was relatively well injured. The sharp blade landed on the middle-aged man's shoulder, almost cutting off half of his shoulder. "Ah!" The middle-aged man groaned and fell into a pool of blood, struggling with great difficulty. The young man looked back and decisively gave up on him, fleeing immediately. Several skeletons chased after him at lightning speed, leaving behind only one skeleton. One of them lifted his foot and stomped on the middle-aged man's head. This stomp would definitely end his life. At the critical moment, a 9-colored ray of light swept over and sent the skeleton flying. The latter rolled on the ground as he flew and finally got up with difficulty. His dark red eyes looked at Suyu, and the flames in his eyes flickered violently. He opened his mouth and let out a creaking sound. It seemed to be saying something to Suyu. The other skeletons sensed that something was amiss and came back one after another. They all opened their mouths and kept saying something to Suyu. Unfortunately, Suyu could not understand what they were saying. "Be careful," Bai Shui frowned. With a flick of her finger, several powerful rays of the Heavenly Law Master's energy sent a group of skeletons flying into the black abyss. Suyu frowned slightly. Did that group of skeletons know him? "You sure are brave," Bai Shui said. "Those are all dead spirits. They might have cast some kind of herbal spell on you, but you just stood there without moving." Suyu shook his head. It was not a spell, but a message. "But who came? Saving people is not your style." Bai Shui glanced at the heavily injured middle-aged man, then at Suyu, feeling incredulous. The Suyu she knew was definitely an extremely cold and callous person. He had actually drawn his sword to help. It was really unexpected. At their level of cultivation, they were already used to the injustice of the world. They had long lost their passion for people who had nothing to do with them. Suyu said expressionlessly, "It's not a big deal. What's the harm in saving him?" He looked down at the middle-aged man. "Can you heal yourself?" The middle-aged man sat up with difficulty. "Thank you for your help, Elder. I'm very grateful." To be able to intimidate a few skeletons with just a finger, he was indeed an elder. "No need," so you did not care. "Then leave this place as soon as possible. We still have matters to attend to. Goodbye." Just as he was about to leave, the middle-aged man shouted, "Wait, are you heading to the famed Sword Sacred Tribe?" The only people who could come here were those heading to the famed Sword Sacred Tribe. "If so, I might be able to provide you with some help." The middle-aged man pulled out the skeletal claw from his chest to stop the bleeding. Bai Shui looked at him suspiciously. "It's more like us helping you." The middle-aged man cupped his fists. "I'm not talented, but I am a sword practitioner of the famed Sword Sacred Tribe. I might be able to help you enter the tribe." Bai Shui was shocked. "You're a swordsman? With your level of cultivation?" The sword masters of the Sword Sacred Clan were famous existences. There were 100 of them in the Sacred Tribe. Every one of them was a master craftsman. They often practiced swords of the famed Sword Sacred Tribe. The absolute heavenly sword was forged by the top 10 sword practitioners. It was hard to believe that a sword practitioner would have such a low level of cultivation. The middle-aged man laughed at himself. "I am Mo Hung, ranked 100. Sorry for the embarrassment." Mo Hung? Bai Shui had actually heard of him before. She was shocked once again. "You are the new genius craftsman Mo Hung from 1,000 years ago." Back then, in the 9-star civilization, an astonishingly talented master refiner appeared out of nowhere, and that was Mo Hung. It was rumored that the Tao artifacts he forged were exceptionally spiritual and could increase their power by 30%. For him, many families fought to the death for him. But Mo Hung had disappeared for no reason. He had actually joined the famed Sword Sacred Tribe. "Strange, with your abilities, you are only ranked 100? That can't be right." Bai Shui immediately discovered the truth. Her gaze swept across, suddenly landing on Mo Hung's chest. Her eyes jumped and she gasped. "This is